King James I was famous not for just changing, for his study of the signed treaties and charters between Britain and the United States exposes a shocking truth. The United States has always been, and still is, a British Crown colony. King James I was famous not for just changing the Bible into the King James Version, but for signing the first Charter of Virginia in 1606. That charter granted America's British forefathers a license to settle and colonize America. The charter also guaranteed that future kings and queens of England would have sovereign authority over all the citizens and colonized land in America stolen from the Indians. After America declared its independence from Great Britain, the Treaty of 1783 was signed. That treaty specifically identifies the King of England as the Prince of the United States and contradicts the belief that America won the War of Independence. Although King George III of England gave up most of his claims over his American colonies, he kept his right to continue receiving payment for his business venture of colonizing America. If America had really won the War of Independence, they would never have agreed to pay debts and reparations to the King of England. When Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the U.S. President was made subservient to the King of England. The 13th Amendment is called the Title of Nobility Amendment and forbids U.S. presidents and their officials from using royal titles like king or prince or baron. For some mysterious reason, the 13th Amendment, which was ratified in 1810, no longer appears on current copies of the Constitution. America's blood-soaked War of Independence against the British bankrupted America and turned its citizens into permanent debt slaves of the king. In the War of 1812, the British torched and burned to the ground the White House and all U.S. government buildings and destroyed ratification records of the U.S. Constitution. 1 century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913, handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters. Most Americans still believe that the Fed, or Federal Reserve, is the government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing eye, and the words, "In God We Trust." Who exactly is the God they trust? They also collect American taxpayers' money through the IRS. Then they loan it back again with interest to pay for roads, bridges, and other public works. American presidents are handpicked and financed by these special interest power groups. Like George W. Bush, John Forbes Kerry.
Yeah, I'm gonna play some religious shit next, yo. Some shit that I used to always hit religious people with when I was really studying the Bible, and I started asking questions about the Bible. And there was like this one topic I would always hit on. The motherfuckers had no real explanation for that shit. It's on my Facebook. I posted it. It's on my Facebook page. This is a really short clip. It's only 5 minutes long, and it says, "Is America still property of England?" I've watched tons of documentaries on this, and everybody says that the United States of America is actually a chartered corporation, and everything in America is incorporated, and that's why our government has to operate out of a district and not a state. Our government is in the District of Columbia. It's not a state. Because technically we're not a nation, we're a corporation. The way this shit is structured and set up is weird as fuck, and it is so old, and there's so many layers to this shit that people don't really understand the history, the foundation, or the functions of America and how this shit was operated, the charters and everything that came with this shit. So like I said, this is only 4 minutes long, 4 minutes 16 seconds. I've started back from the top.
Study of the signed treaties and charters between Britain and the United States exposes a shocking truth. The The United States has always been, and still is, a British Crown colony. King James I was famous not for just changing the Bible into the King James Version, but for signing the first Charter of Virginia in 1606. That charter granted America's British forefathers a license to settle and colonize America. The charter also guaranteed that future kings and queens of England would have sovereign authority over all the citizens and colonized land in America stolen from the Indians. After America declared its independence from Great Britain, the Treaty of 1783 was signed. That treaty specifically identifies the King of England as the Prince of the United States and contradicts the belief that...
And see, alright, on little shit like this, so she talked about the Treaty of Virginia. Now you should go to Google or YouTube and type in the first Treaty of Virginia from King James and listen to people tell you about that, or find more historical information on the Treaty of Virginia. And then the second treaty she's talking
America
about,
won the War of Independence.
which is the Treaty of what?
Won the War of Independence. That treaty. After America declared its independence from Great Britain, the Treaty of 1783 was signed.
The Treaty of
That treaty
1783.
specifically identifies the King of England as the Prince of the United States and contradicts the
Treaty of
belief that America won the
1783.
War of Independence. Although King George
I'll go
III
look
of
that shit
England
up.
gave up most of his claims over his American colonies, he kept his right to continue receiving payment for his business venture of colonizing America. If America had really won the War of Independence, they would never have agreed to pay debts and reparations to the King of England. When Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the U.S. President was made subservient to the King of England. The 13th Amendment is called the Title of Nobility Amendment and forbids U.S. presidents and their officials from using royal titles like king or prince or baron. For some mysterious reason, the 13th Amendment, which was ratified in 1810, no longer appears on current copies of the Constitution. America's blood-soaked War of Independence against the British bankrupted America and turned its citizens into permanent debt slaves of the king. In the War of 1812, the British torched and burned to the ground the White House and all U.S. government buildings and destroyed ratification records of the U.S. Constitution. 1 century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913, handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters. Most Americans still believe that the Fed, or Federal Reserve, is a government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn & Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing eye, and the words, "In God We Trust." Who exactly is the God they trust? They also collect American taxpayers' money through the IRS. Then they loan it back again with interest to pay for roads, bridges, and other public works. American presidents are handpicked and financed by these special interest power groups. Like George W. Bush, John Forbes Kerry, whose initials are JFK, is a member of Yale University's Skull and Bones Brotherhood. The Forbes part of John Kerry's name identifies his descendancy from Captain Robert Bennett Forbes, who was a drug runner for the Rothschilds' opium drug trade with China. Trade with China in the 1800s. Most U.S. citizens believe that the United States is a country and that the president is the most powerful man on earth. The United States is not a country. It is a corporation, and the president is president of the corporation of the United States. He and his elected officials work for the corporation, not for the American people. Since the United States is a corporation, who owns the corporation of the United States? Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen, and whose land is called Crown Land, the United States is just another crown colony.
Hello there guys, and welcome back to another Trade the Explainer video, and hopefully that break wasn't so bad. Today, we are kind of returning to my young Earth creationist claims and did humans and dinosaurs coexist series. Well, kind of. This video certainly started out like that, but over time it became kind of something I found far more fascinating and a bit off topic from the original video. But I hope you find it interesting nonetheless. So, without further ado, let's start my in-depth examination of Leviathan. A popular claim made by young Earth creationists and other people that believe humans and dinosaurs coexisted is the description in the book of Job in the Hebrew Bible of two creatures, Leviathan and Behemoth. They suggest that the description of both of these creatures are eyewitness accounts of actual animals, most likely extinct reptiles like dinosaurs, mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, and etc., and thus dispute the scientific model that humans did not coexist with such animals. In this video, we'll be focusing on the creature Leviathan first, and try to figure out the answer to the question, what is Leviathan exactly? Well, Leviathan appears in the Bible a few times, 6 to be exact, but only rather briefly and in passing, in a manner as if the reader should already kind of know what it is. Well, we can first learn a bit from the word Leviathan itself. Firstly, the word is singular and denotes an individual as opposed to a species. The word is a name for a specific individual, like the Minotaur or the Hydra or Jormungandr. The etymology or origin of the word associates it with the Hebrew words of to coil, to twist, and its name translates to the twisting one, or the wreath-like one, or the circular one. The name itself is strongly associated with descriptions of a snake, particularly one in Ouroboros position. Additionally, this aspect of Leviathan's name has been suggested by some scholars to suggest Leviathan is a primeval sea serpent that encircles the earth with its body, which is a belief held by some of the Israelites' neighbors. Some Babylonian artwork often depicts a giant serpent coiled around the earth in a circle, serving as its foundations, and this seems reminiscent of the Norse mythological serpent of Jormungandr, or the world serpent, which similarly surrounds the earth with its body. These legends are in turn reminiscent of other mythologies where a giant serpent-like monster serves as the foundation of Earth, particularly the ones of Sumer, in which the defeated giant sea serpent Tiamat's corpse is used. Because of all this, scholars have suggested that Leviathan may, or may not, have served a similar purpose in ancient Hebrew mythology, as a giant creature that encircles the globe, or whose body serves as its foundation. And this is somewhat further supported by the actual textual evidence we will examine later. The longest description of Leviathan occurs in the book of Job, but it is briefly mentioned in Psalms, Amos, and Isaiah in passing, essentially as a mere allusion or name drop, if you will. So let's look at the text and look at the description given. In Job, Leviathan and Behemoth are alluded to in a speech by Yahweh, or God, that he gives to Job, a man who is questioning God for making him suffer. In his speech, God essentially says humanity is ignorant and weak, unable to comprehend or understand his knowledge and reasons, and therefore God should not be questioned. Several mysteries for people of that age are mentioned by God in the form of a question. Do you know how God controls the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang? Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea and walked in the recesses of the deep? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you understand. Who marked off the dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of hail, which are reserved for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, here we are? Essentially what is being said here is that humans cannot do or know these mysteries. Only God can. And then Leviathan and Behemoth are mentioned with the same type of rhetoric as an illusion. Can you pull Leviathan with a fishhook, or tie its tongue down with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. Essentially, what is being said here is that Leviathan is quite an adversary, and no mere human has any hope of subduing it. Only God can. I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength, and its graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed with fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between them. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Leviathan here is covered with a thick, scaly, armored hide that again no human has any hope of piercing. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils, as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flames start from its mouth. Leviathan here has glowing eyes and can breathe fire like a dragon. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. The folds of its flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immobile. Its chest is hard as a rock, hard as a lower millstone. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or dart or javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make it flee. Slingstones are like chaff to it. A club seems to hit but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of a lance. Here, Leviathan is again very strong and very large, unbelievably large, with no human having any chance against it. Its undersides are like jagged pot shears, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sled. It makes the deep churn like a boiling cauldron, and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening wake behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Leviathan is again very large and very monstrous. And this is pretty much it for Leviathan and Job. Job repents after hearing this speech and concedes that he is weak while God is strong and unquestionable. Note that Leviathan is not being described or seen by Job or the author, and he is certainly not an eyewitness. It is merely offhandedly mentioned in the speech by Yahweh. It appears the entire point of Leviathan's appearance in Job is rhetorical, to further point out the weakness, ignorance, and insignificance of humanity in relation to the universe and contrast it with the power, intelligence, and supremacy of Yahweh. We are repeatedly shown that Leviathan and Behemoth is unstoppable. Humans with all our knowledge and power are useless compared to the strength of these beasts. Essentially, the point of this entire passage is to contrast humanity's weakness and vulnerability with God's power over such creatures. Leviathan is pretty much just a symbol and a piece of imagery for the author to give the audience to relay this point. We can learn a lot about Leviathan through the rhetorical questions posed by Yahweh, essentially stating that humans cannot subdue or defeat such a powerful creature, while God can. Leviathan reappears later in Psalms within an apparent recollection of the creation of the earth by the author. But God is my king from long ago. He brings salvation on the earth. It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the heads of the monster in the waters. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert. It was you who opened up springs and streams. You dried up the ever-flowing rivers. The day is yours, and yours also the night. You established the sun and the moon. It was you who set the boundaries of the earth. You made both summer and winter. From this we can understand that Leviathan has multiple heads, and was apparently murdered by God in a past battle, implied to be in the context of the creation of the world, just like the many other listed accomplishments God has done in the passage, like creating the sun and moon and creating the earth. The murder of Leviathan is listed alongside other aspects involved in the creation of the earth, and it seems likely that all these events are related. Leviathan's corpse appears to have been dismembered and redistributed by God as food for creatures of the earth. Leviathan is name-dropped again later in Psalms, where it is listed alongside God's many works and accomplishments. O Lord, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and large beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein. Leviathan is now alive and is said to live in the sea, and is named separately from the other great and small beasts of the sea. Leviathan is name dropped again in Isaiah. In that day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fugitive serpent, and Leviathan, the crooked serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. Leviathan is prophesied by the author to engage in a battle with Leviathan in the future. Leviathan is again specified as a serpent and a dragon, and is associated with the ocean. Leviathan is mentioned one last time in Amos. as the serpent that lives at the bottom of the ocean. Additionally, there appears to be a connection with Leviathan, a very similar creature in the Old Testament by the name of Rahab. No, not the woman. Briefly mentioned in Psalms and Isaiah. Rahab appears to be a nickname for Egypt in some cases, but not so in others. God will not turn back his anger. Beneath him bowed the helpers of Rahab. By his power he stilled the sea. By his understanding he shattered Rahab. By his spirit he hath garnished the heavens. His hand hath formed the crooked serpent, Rahab. You rule over the surging sea. When its waves mount up, you still them. You crushed Rahab like one of the slain. And with your strong arm you shattered your enemies. The heavens are yours, and yours also the earth. You founded the world and all that is in it. Awake, awake, put on strength. O arm of the Lord, wake as in days of old, the generations long ago. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces and pierced the dragon? Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a way for the redeemed to pass over? In some circumstances, Rahab is referred to as the fugitive serpent, a title given to Leviathan in Isaiah 27. Leviathan and Rahab are additionally mentioned alongside each other in some passages. Additionally, both are described as dragon-like creatures that are associated with the sea and defeated and dismembered by God in a past event. Both are associated with the stilling of the oceans and possibly the creation of the earth. And the scholarly consensus is that Rahab and Leviathan appear to be two names for the same entity, which are sometimes used interchangeably with one another. The name Rahab is associated with the Hebrew word for rage and tremble, especially its derivative to overflow, which makes sense with Rahab's association with the sea and ocean. And yep, that's about it for Leviathan Rahab. He's mentioned here and there with limited details about his origins and significance. A lot of the information about the creature is fragmentary and doesn't all fit together cohesively 100%. However, from all this, we can get a pretty firm understanding of what Leviathan is. Number 1. Leviathan is a great sea serpent-like dragon creature with multiple heads. Number 2. Leviathan is strongly associated with the ocean, typically the abyss or deep. Number 3. Leviathan is associated with the concept of chaos and disorder in said ocean, with God stilling or calming the ocean into order alongside killing Leviathan in a big battle. Number 4. Leviathan in his battle with God appears to have been originally associated with the creation of the universe. Number 5. Leviathan and Yahweh are adversaries to one another. Number 6. Leviathan's corpse is dismembered and redistributed by Yahweh after his defeat. And lastly, number 7. Leviathan appears to be possibly associated with the foundation of the world, possibly surrounding it or circling it with its body. It is becoming clear that Leviathan isn't a dinosaur or even a real animal in the slightest, but a mythological one more in line with the Hydra or Minotaur or Pegasus. Biblical scholars throughout history have attempted to try to comprehend Leviathan Rahab with many vastly different interpretations. However, modern scholars commonly accept that the Leviathan that is alluded to is a primordial sea serpent which God battled at the beginning of time in order to create the universe. Some scholars have noted that the killing and subduing of Leviathan in the context of the creation of the earth is reminiscent of the creation of the earth given in Genesis, with the calming of the primeval waters or the deep that existed before. Oxford Old Testament professor John Day suggests that the creation story given in Genesis 1 is the demythologized version of the Leviathan creation story given in bits and pieces in various other parts of the Old Testament. This battle between God and this horrible sea serpent has been dubbed the Chaos Kampf, and it appears to be something ancient Hebrews believed in but has been largely edited out or demythologized out of the biblical canon over the centuries. Now, it's rather important to take a look at the cultural context of these biblical books, to the ancient Hebrews, the original authors, and audience of these texts. The main neighbors of the ancient Hebrews would have been the Canaanites and the Babylonians. Now, in the mythology of the Canaanites, we have a text known as the Baal cycle, which is a collection of various stories relating to Baal, a storm god and head of many Mesopotamian pantheons. One story recollects Baal's battle with the god of the sea, Yam. Yam plans to rule over all the other gods and sends his servant/pet Lotan or Litan, or the twisting serpent or the mighty one with 7 heads, a 7-headed sea dragon, to attack Baal. Baal manages to defeat Lotan, and then Yam is defeated in a big battle. Firstly, we should note that Lotan and Leviathan are incredibly similar, with almost identical epithets or nicknames, the wiggling serpent and the twisting serpent. The two are also closely associated with the sea and ocean, and both have multiple heads, and both are defeated by a god. Additionally, the description of Leviathan in Isaiah 27 verse 1, "On that day the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the twisting serpent, Leviathan the crooked serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea," is almost quoted directly from the Baal epic, created almost 1,000 years earlier, where Mot, a god, says to Baal that you smote Lotan, the twisting serpent, and made an end to the crooked serpent. again suggesting the two creatures are one and the same, or at least related or inspired by one another. A similar myth is attested to in the Babylonian creation story of Enuma Elish. In this text, before the earth was created, there was only Tiamat, the chaotic salt water, and her lover Abzu, the calmer freshwater. Tiamat is described as a giant great sea serpent or dragon. Tiamat and Abzu mate producing the lesser gods. Abzu is murdered by the lesser gods, and Tiamat is filled with rage and attempts to get revenge. She births countless monsters to kill the lesser gods. Marduk, god of the storms, engages in a massive battle with Tiamat and subdues her. He slices her corpse in two, using one part to create the heavens and the other the foundations of the earth. Again, we see similarities between Leviathan, Lotan, and Tiamat. In all three stories, a god, namely one that is associated with storms, Yahweh does speak to Job and other people in the storm, duels with a giant sea serpent associated with chaos in the ocean. In Enuma Elish in the Bible, Tiamat and Leviathan are dismembered and reused by the respective victor gods, and both are used in the creation of the universe. Although some elements differ, many elements of the Chaos Kampf are shared between all three stories. Modern scholarship generally agrees it appears some imagery and influence from the older Babylonian and Canaanite religious stories were incorporated or inspired into the Bible and reappropriated to better fit the Hebrew canon and God. Essentially, the authors of the Bible kept the crux of the story that they've been hearing a lot from their neighbors, but recasted it with their own versions of the characters. The Hebrew authors and their audience obviously would have been familiar with these stories of their neighbors, whom they commonly traded and communicated with. It's very clear elements from both religions at the very least influenced the imagery of Job and other texts. However, the Chaos Cup is more common than you think, and it is found outside of religions just in the Middle East. And there are in fact seemingly many separate and unrelated religions that appear to possess the common story of the battle between the Chaos Serpent and the Storm God. We actually find the story everywhere, from Zeus battling the serpentine monster Typhon in Greek mythology, to Ra battling the Chaos Serpent Apep in Egyptian mythology, to Thor battling the world serpent Jormungandr in Norse mythology, to Indra battling Vitria in Hindu mythology. And the list goes on, with elements of the story maybe being found as far as Japan and the Americas. There appears to be a popular mythic trope or meme that exists in many religions and mythologies. This is something called comparative mythology. It's when religions and mythologies share commonalities with one another, and it appears that Chaos Kampf is one of the most common and prevalent of all of them. Although there are many ways these stories vary from one another, they still retain fundamental similarities. In almost every iteration of the story, there is a multi-headed sea serpent creature which typically embodies chaos, with a godly opponent with an association with thunderstorms. The two characters duel, and the serpent always loses. And modern religious scholarship seems to agree that the commonalities are too numerous in some cases to be pure coincidence. The prevalence of this myth or story has been debated over decades, but it appears that this is a result of both cultural diffusion, that is the communication and transmission of ideas from culture to culture, as well as a result of common origin. Across Eurasia, from England to India, there appears to be strong similarities not just in mythologies, but in the languages themselves. And from this, it is believed all cultures from the Greeks and Romans to Indians to the Norse people of Scandinavia all descend from what have been dubbed the Proto-Indo-Europeans, whose culture widely spread throughout the prehistoric world in the late Neolithic. There are a lot of videos that discuss them better than me, so check them out. The Proto-Indo-Europeans carried their myths and language with them when they distributed across Eurasia, only to grow distant and acquire differences from one another over the generations. The descendants of the Pi people all seem to possess similar myths and stories in addition to the Chaos Kampf, and it is believed these are holdovers from the days of their Proto-Indo-European ancestors. The religion of the Proto-Indo-Europeans has been attempted to be reconstructed by looking at the similarities between seemingly unrelated religions. Among these similarities found in many religions are a myth about the sun and moon riding in chariots across the sky, a creation story involving two brothers, one of whom sacrifices the other to create the world, possibly an other world guarded by a watchdog, and could only be reached by crossing a river by use of a ferryman, a world tree bearing fruit of immortality, either guarded or gnawed on by a serpent or dragon, and tended by three goddesses who spun the threads of life. From the ferryman of the underworld Charon in Greek mythology, and Jur-Shanabai in Mesopotamian mythology, to the giant Ymir in Norse mythology and Purusha in Hindu mythology, to the three Moirai in Greek mythology and the Norns in Norse mythology. Similarities appear from all around the ancient world, and it appears at the very least these seemingly separate religions shared and exchanged ideas commonly, and or descended from a shared prehistoric religion, possibly the Proto-Indo-European religion. Again, a lot of this is unclear due to how fragmentary and mysterious history gets when we go this far back. So what is Leviathan exactly? Well, Leviathan is not a dinosaur or a crocodile, but an ancient mythological creature found in many religions and probably originated with the prehistoric religion of the Proto-Indo-Europeans. The myth was so popular that it spread and was eventually adopted by the Israelites and incorporated into the biblical canon as their own version. Leviathan is a remnant of an older age, an older religion passed down from generation to generation, and it gives us amazing insight into both the origins of religions as well as how connected the ancient world was. Leviathan is essentially just a meme that caught on. Some similarities with the Chaos Conf actually still exist in modern extant religions. Now, one might start to notice something rather curious and reminiscent between the battle between Yahweh and Leviathan of the Old Testament and the battle between Jesus Christ and Satan, or the devil specified in the New Testament, particularly the prophecies found in Revelation. Well, this isn't a mistake. The author probably models his concept of Satan in the apocalypse off of this concept of the Chaos Conf directly. Humans just seem to hate snakes, regardless of language and country. Anyways, food for thought. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this rather lengthy, somewhat chaotic, no pun intended, video. As I think overly sarcastic, and no, I did not mean to rip you guys off with this video, I honestly didn't, puts it better in her most recent video on Dionysus, go check that out. Religion can be a very complicated thing, and no religion is born out of a vacuum. With religious beliefs, you often have thousands upon thousands of years of complex history, and nothing is just that simple. The roots of a religion or concept can go back very, very far, and Leviathan is no different with his roots, extending probably into prehistory. This video, because of all this, has been in the works for a very, very long time. At the very least, a few years for me, and I've had to read so much information on the subject. If you want to check out some of my sources on this video and subject, definitely check out the academic book, The Dictionary of Deities and Demons, which contains academic articles on the named gods, angels, and demons in the books of the Hebrew Bible. It's definitely a great starting point for anyone who wants to read about the academic consensus on many aspects of the Bible. And good news, it's available online as a PDF, so go check it out. Another great source was Professor John Day's Yahweh and the Gods and Goddesses of Canaan, which I bought as a physical copy in my own library. It discusses the origins and development of Judaism, many of its rather obscure references to beings and creatures, and its cultural context. For this video, I got two of my favorite artists to create their own interpretations of Leviathan, but unfortunately I couldn't fit them into the final product too well. I just wanted to give them a shout out and tell them thank you so much. Anyways, this video is way too long already, so I hope you enjoyed this examination of an obscure biblical character and how it's basically led me down a rabbit hole and discovering a fascinating conspiracy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Ah, back for more I see. One video on rotting sea blobs wasn't enough. Good. Before we continue examining new globsters, remember that horribly obvious Ataka carcass, which was just a whale misinterpreted as a tusked monster? Well, apparently cases just like that have fooled people for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Yeah, really. Numerous ancient sea maps from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, such as the Carta Marina, commonly depict terrifying large tusked hog-headed sea serpents. It is very likely these monstrous aquatic pigs originate from baleen whale carcasses. With, just like Ataka, the tusk-like appearance of the baleen whale's lower jaws were misinterpreted as that of a massive boar or pig, thus sparking legends of colossal tusked sea monsters. Some illustrations take this misinterpretation a step further by adding 2 or 3 sets of tusks. These types of sea monsters are seen extremely common in ancient maps and have been given a proper name. Well, sea swine. It's likely these artists did not depict such bizarre animals from life, but are, in reality, basing these beasts off the skeletal remains of baleen whales, which were misinterpreted as what was most familiar to the artist. An animal with tusks? A wild boar in the ocean, of course. It's cool to see there's some basis to old myths, and guess what? Hundreds of years later, and people are still making the same mistakes. Again, I wish I could take the credit for spotting this, but all the credit belongs to Michael, who, as well as tell me about this, made several of the amazing globster sketches in this video. Very interesting indeed, Michael. Thank you. Alrighty, enough of that biz. Next up, on our next examination of various mystery corpses throughout history is Trunco. No, not Trumpy, although that would be really awesome. No, it's Trunco. Oh yes, Trunco, one of the more famous and rather bizarre globsters, and is probably up there with one of the strangest cryptids ever. Our story starts out on October 25th, 1924, not 1922 as many sources incorrectly claim. Off the coast of Margate, South Africa, when local farmer Hugh Balance claimed to have seen a spectacular sight out in the sea. By use of binoculars, Hugh saw a battle between two orcas and a massive white furry creature which he compared most to a giant polar bear. Most bizarre of all, it was said to have possessed an elephant-like trunk. Holy crap, this really is starting to sound like Trumpy, just an albino version.
Hello there guys, and welcome back to another Trade the Explainer video, and hopefully that break wasn't so bad. Today, we are kind of returning to my younger...
Well, welcome. My topic today, I'm going to talk about 1177 BCs.
On the Ditlas land, best deal ever. In Cthulhu title.
We all marvel over the ancient pyramids of Egypt, the mysterious sculptures of Stonehenge, and the majestic hanging gardens of Babylon. And the chronology of these archaic civilizations is firmly established within academic circles and cemented in history books. So you can imagine how suggesting an alternative view of this history would render you a heretic in academia. But going against the grain doesn't necessarily mean you're incorrect. Which brings me to my next guest, Graham Hancock. He's a prolific best-selling author and one of the world's leading experts on the study of ancient civilizations. He provides a very compelling perspective on the true origins of modern man. Earlier I spoke to Hancock about his groundbreaking research, and I first asked him how he thinks the fields of archaeology and history have sanitized the past.
First of all, let me say I don't think it's any kind of conspiracy. I think that we have a large number of dedicated, hard-working, committed scientific professionals working in the field of archaeology. They feel they know what they're doing. Like all scientists down through the ages, they have a reference frame that they work through. That reference frame becomes their definition of reality, and they find it very difficult to accept alternative points of view. I think it's as simple as that. I think that you can look at archaeology in terms of the history of science and see that science has often resisted new ideas and fought bitterly to prevent them coming on board. And sometimes those new ideas don't deserve to come on board, but sometimes they do. And this is the way that ideas progress. Gradually, new information will come out, and if a new idea is worthy, it will be supported by that new information.
Graham, what's a more modern-day example of a theory once considered outrageous that turned out to be factually supported by evidence?
Well, for example, continental drift, which everybody is familiar with today, and which we regard as a fact that the continents move around, and you can even see the jigsaw puzzle on the globe of the Earth. But when Alfred Wegener proposed the theory of plate tectonics continental drift back in the early 1900s, around about 1918, 1920, I believe, he was ridiculed, humiliated, accused of being a madman. The idea was seen to be patently absurd, and another 30 years passed before the idea was accepted. And now, of course, we all regard it as plain fact and obvious. But that poor individual had to go through really a humiliating public pillory because he was proposing an idea that turned out to be completely correct.
Amazing. And you've also said that there's a, quote, mother culture from which all ancient historical civilizations sprang from. Can you explain what that concept entails?
Well, again, let me be clear. I am proposing an idea for discussion. I'm not claiming that I am in possession of some indisputable facts. I think we should consider the possibility of a forgotten episode in human history. I think we should consider the possibility that our picture of history and prehistory may not be complete, and that cataclysmic events have occurred. We know that cataclysmic events occur. They're part of the life of the Earth. The cataclysmic events have occurred on such a scale that they could have wiped out all traces of a great civilization of the past. Now, of course, academic historians and archaeologists do a kind of belly laugh whenever one mentions the word Atlantis. But let's not forget that Atlantis comes down to us, the oldest surviving reference to Atlantis comes down to us from the Greek philosopher Plato. And he tells us that 9,000 years before the time of Solon, which is 9,600 BC, or 11,600 years ago, a great civilization was destroyed in cataclysmic floods and earthquakes and vanished beneath the sea. And he said that the disaster was so complete that humanity was obliged to begin again like children with no memory of what went before. Now, it just so happens that Plato's date, 11,600 years ago, 9,600 BC in our calendar, Plato's date fits exactly with an episode called the Younger Dryas, which geologists recognize, which did culminate in dramatic flooding and earthquakes. And it's really odd, if Plato made the whole thing up, that he managed to pick a date that fits perfectly with modern geological understanding of cataclysmic events at the end of the last ice age. Now, the suggestion is that Atlantis by any other name, by the way, you need to know that the story of Atlantis comes to us from Plato, but there's an identical story in India, for example. In fact, this story is repeated with different names all around the world. And the suggestion is that there were survivors of the cataclysmic collapse of that prehistoric civilization, and that those survivors settled in various points around the world, in Egypt, in South America, in Mexico, in Mesopotamia, and so on and so forth, and sought to preserve and protect the knowledge that their civilization had built up to create some kind of institution which would pass it down to the future. And this is the remote common origin that explains the similarities between these widely separated ancient cultures.
I want to get into a little bit of these historical inconsistencies. What is the earliest account of longitude and astronomical mapping that modern science claims couldn't have existed before the 18th century or so?
Well, see, in order to do longitude, you need an accurate chronometer, an accurate timekeeping device, if you like, which will tell you the time at a particular point on the Earth's surface, and then you can then compare it with local noon at the point you are, and realize how far away you are from that point on the Earth's surface. And we did not have chronometers that were capable of keeping accurate time on ships until the late 1700s. And so our civilization has been able to plot longitude accurately since the late 1700s. Before that, there was always a danger that your dead reckoning would be off, and that you would sail suddenly into a cliff or a coastline that you didn't expect to be there because your calculations were wrong. But once we had accurate chronometers that could keep time on board ship, the longitude problem was solved, and that's the late 1700s. The problem is that there are ancient maps from well before the 1700s which show the world, A, as it looked during the last ice age, and B, which have highly accurate longitudes. And these maps, in most cases, were created in the 14, 15, 1600s, but they were based on older source maps which are now lost to us. For example, the famous Piri Reis map, the Turkish Admiral Piri Reis tells us in his own handwriting on his map that he based it on more than 100 older source maps that he believed had come from the Library of Alexandria. They were falling apart, and so he decided to preserve the information on them on his map. And in the process, he incorporated extremely accurate longitudes, which we must then conclude were present on those older source maps.
Recently, an Australian paleoanthropologist discovered the possibility of yet another species of humans that existed alongside our ancestors up to 14,000 years ago. What do these content findings say about our understanding of human evolution at this point?
I think what they say more generally about our understanding of the past is that our picture of the past is very incomplete. I mean, we've been going along for the last 50 or 60 or more years thinking that, yes, there was Neanderthal man, and also there was Homo sapiens sapiens, our own species, and that was it. And Neanderthal man became extinct, what, 30, 35, perhaps 25,000 years ago, and then we were the only human species on the planet. But within the last few years, we've had the discovery of Homo floresiensis from the island of Flores in Indonesia, and also the so-called red deer people in China, both of whom were a distinct, different species of human, and both of whom survived until about 12,000 years ago. So this tells us that we really can't claim to have, perhaps ever, to have a complete picture of the past, and that means that we should at least keep a small fragment of our minds open to extraordinary possibilities in the past. And one of those extraordinary possibilities, the one that I've concerned myself with, is the possibility of a great lost civilization, which is memorialized in myths and traditions all around the world.
And of course, you talked extensively about Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids, how all these things kind of point to that theory, Graham. I want to get into your TED Talk last year called The War on Consciousness that was pulled off YouTube. On the TEDx blog, it says, "We didn't censor you." But were you surprised that your wildly popular talk was pulled? And what does this say about the institution of TED, which is portrayed as this beacon of free academic thought?
It was a great disappointment for me because I had the highest opinion of TED prior to this. But myself and my colleague Rupert Sheldrake both gave talks at a TEDx conference in London. Both of those talks considered what would be regarded perhaps as extraordinary possibilities about consciousness by mainstream science. And both of those talks were subsequently deleted from the TEDx YouTube channel. And then, because there was a massive outcry across the internet at this act that was seen as censorship, TED reinstalled them in what my friend Rupert calls the naughty corner on their own website, where with great difficulty they could be found and seen again and commented upon. Now, the reason that TED gave for pulling our talks, they said it was because our talks were not in accord with mainstream science, but every single reason that they gave for saying that, they subsequently had to delete. And if you go to the relevant website now, you'll find that TED's original critiques of us are all crossed out by TED themselves, and our refutations are published there, but still they refuse to put the talks back on YouTube, which suggests to me that a particular faction of science, which is the science that seeks to reduce all mysteries to matter, which says that consciousness is purely an epiphenomenon of material activity in the brain and that there's nothing else to it. This is not a fact. This is an ideological position within science, and that ideological position is presently making the decisions for TED. And if you have a point of view which is opposite to that particular corner of ideology, you will not be able to express it on the TED medium.
This is perhaps the most fascinating thing that I found out today looking through your Twitter feed. New research suggests that phobias and memories may be passed down through genetic switches, allowing offspring to actually inherit experience. I mean, do you think this kind of groundbreaking research, what does it tell us about the naivete when it comes to our understanding of what consciousness really is?
It tells us what we really should know already, that consciousness is the greatest mystery of science, and that it is perhaps the scientific mystery that we most urgently need to solve. And we have at our disposal an array of natural substances called the psychedelics, which allow us to switch on and off altered states of consciousness at will, which are a superb devices for exploring the mystery of consciousness. And yet, for ideological reasons, and these reasons are totally ideological, the justification for them simply does not exist, for ideological reasons, we are prevented from doing so. And this is a cover for all sorts of other restrictions and controls on the freedom of the adult over his or her own body and over his or her own consciousness. Unfortunately, healthcare is constantly wheeled out as a reason to remove our sovereignty from us. And the trend of freedom in Western societies should be towards increased individual sovereignty rather than decreased individual sovereignty.
Graham Hancock, absolutely incredible. I mean, people can watch you for hours and definitely have their consciousness expanded quite a bit. Where can people find out more about your work?
GrahamHancock.com on the internet, and my Facebook account as well is very active, and I spend a lot of time talking there, and that is author.GrahamHancock.
Thank you so much for taking the time out today, Graham, to shed a little bit of insight into the world. Graham Hancock, author, philosopher, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
L61. He does a fantastic job covering UN Agenda 21 policies, and all of his videos add up to the quantifiable, which we've seen in the documents, of course, Sophia, which is, you're right, they want to hoard people out of the suburbs, out of the rural areas. They want to make all of that off limits to human beings. They want to herd everybody into these centralized major cities, and they want people to live in teeny tiny little footprints where it's not about quality of life, it's about quality of place. And I say that specifically because that's what the Agenda 21 culprits say. They want to destroy our way of living. And it all comes full circle for me, Sophia, when I think of Bill Gates in his TED Talk, in which he talked about the absolute necessity of reducing our carbon footprint to zero. Zero emissions. He wants that as fast as possible. And until and unless we get new energy sources, new technologies, that will mean we will all live as serfs. There will be no cars, there will be bikes. You may not have central air conditioning. You may not even have a fan, live with the heat. They are setting up a true prison planet for us through these Agenda 21 policies.
Correct. And the thing is, their only noose through which and by which they can reel us and pull us into all this is our consent, our signature. They really only can touch us, Sean, I've learned now, through what's called the legal fiction of the self, the straw man. Your name in capital letters, as shown on your short form birth certificate, is your straw man. And every time you sign a contract, if you look at your bank statements, that's all in capital letters, your name. If you look at your driver's license, this is you having contracted with these agencies through your fictitious name and your straw man, your legal fiction. When we're born, we all are issued a long-form birth certificate by the hospital, and then that is somehow turned by the county. It's very Masonic. It's religious almost. 3 days later, the county issues the short form. I've been told that they're actually killing your live birth self and turning it into this dead, fictitious self. And everybody gets this short form birth certificate. And then, with their name in capital letters presented to them, they show up and admit and agree and consent to being enjoined to that legal fiction. And that's what dogs you your entire life. It's your signature is your instrument of connection.
Someone out there is killing puppets. We're gonna catch the person who did these murders. I think I found the murder weapon.
Well, I've heard that, and I've heard that your birth certificate is essentially your stock certificate, or should I say, their stock certificate. You are nothing more than cattle in this corporate fiction, and you're an asset. You're an asset to the bankers. And, you know, that's the scariest damn thing I can think of, but it makes sense, because these people don't value us as human beings. They certainly don't value our human sovereignty. They don't respect our sovereignty, our God-given sovereignty. They don't respect the Bill of Rights. They don't respect any of the things that makes us human beings. We're human resources to them.
Right. Now, I'm reading this booklet, Lawfully Yours, which has been tailored by anticorruptionsociety.com, and you can find it. There's actually a menu tab there. I would tell everyone, look at that PDF, just read it at your leisure, and you'll understand a lot of things. It's taken from the original writing by a Judge Dale, who reveals what the courts and the legal system are really about. Now, legal is about contracts that these corporations make, their rules and their regulations, which really don't have effect on us. And Sean, I'll just tweak what you said by reminding everyone that they do respect your free, living, breathing, flesh and blood self if you can assert that self instead of enjoining your legal fiction with enjoining your real flesh and blood body to your legal fiction all the time. So when you can declare that as your real flesh and blood self, you are not consenting to these rules and regulations that they issue through their corporation, there's no reason you have to. The only way they can revoke And, you know, what are they going to do? You put in an air conditioner and they'll fine you? They cannot fine your flesh and blood body. They can only fine your legal fiction. So you have to be aware of the difference. Lawful and legal are not the same. Lawful is common law, and there's a very good documentary. I want to let people know about my blog. If you go to sophiasmallstorm.com and you spell Sophia with an F, you will get my blog page directly. And I've put up a series of things now recently, and you can watch and listen to all of this. But first and foremost, the documentary, The Nature of the Cage, Straw Man, The Nature of the Cage, made in Britain, very recently released, that will explain what they've done. And it explains that lawful is common law. It's the law of the land, and it's very simple. It's very straightforward. There are basically three things. Don't breach the peace. Don't cause anyone harm or loss or injury or their property. And don't use fraud in your contracts, in your agreements. And I say all the time to people, since we've gotten so transient and fluid in our collectives, in our societies, we don't know the people we see every day. I see hundreds of people every day that I'll never see again, and I've never seen before. So when we make agreements with each other, when I look in the yellow pages and I call a plumber, I don't know him personally. They give us this thing called the legal system that we believe we have at our disposal should something go wrong with our agreements with each other. We make contracts with each other. We sign contracts with them. And we think we can turn to this legal system, which is not really helpful. It's just a way to make one of us pay, and they make money on top of it all, you know? So legal is about statutes, excuse me. I've never thought I'd make that mistake, and I did. The laws of society. And there are hundreds of thousands of these statutes and codes and things. We can't possibly know about any of them.
Right.
So legal is about contracts. You've got to sign these contracts before you're bound to them. And most important, you have to know what's in that contract you're signing. So we don't know that. You sit down with notaries and you have to sign forms, and it's pages and pages and pages, and they say, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here.
I've seen that.
It's all standard. It's all boilerplate. But the thing is, mistake is a remedy, as I learned. Now I'm going to talk about another series of interviews, and it sounds, way too long. Oh, I don't have the time. But it's so easy to listen to. This is the Joyce Rosenwald series that's also on my blog page. It's titled Parens Patriae, Government as Parent. And it's through that doctrine of Parens Patriae that I've talked about before, where the state, the government, can declare you unfit to act in your own name, advocate for yourself. For instance, they'll declare you mentally incompetent. Children are considered minors and not mature, so their parents sign for them. And if their parents are deemed irresponsible by the state, then the state gets jurisdiction over the children. That's all doctrine of Parens Patriae. But it's only through that doctrine, through the straw man, the legal fiction, that any of these agencies, the state, the government, the courts can touch us. This is our power.
Yes. I agree. It is our power, but here's one of my concerns I want to share with you. I want to get your thought on this. How do people effectively take advantage of that power when the government is criminal? And I want to back that up with this segue to sovereign citizens, because I think there's a relation here, and I want your thoughts on it. An FBI law enforcement bulletin was released in September of 2011, and the title of it is Sovereign Citizens, a Growing Domestic Threat to Law Enforcement, by the FBI's Counterterrorism Analysis section. I could read it to you, but I think I bore the audience. You guys can check it out yourselves here. I'll post it in this video. When the government wants to demonize, quote-unquote, sovereign citizens, Sophia, how are we to take advantage of our power? Because the government's criminal, and they're not going to respect any of the actions a person takes.
Bro, the name of my stream, Art and Education, man. I've been doing this shit for years. I've been to Chantilly, Virginia, protesting the Bilderberg group. I've given speeches at tea parties and rallies. I listened to almost everything Jordan Maxwell got to offer. I was real big on Alex Jones back in the day, but not so much now. Alan Watts, Mark Dice, my man who wrote 9/11 Fact and Fiction. Goddamn, can't remember the dude's name. But yeah, bro, this is what I do, bro. I mean, I appreciate you trying to put me up on shit, cause I like to learn a lot of shit too. But trust me, bro, I've been on all that shit like 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, Jordan Maxwell was one of the first people I started listening to. This motherfucker break down everything, like you say, from Admiralty law, but just the court system. Why motherfucking the judges wear black robes? Why when you graduate you wear a square fucking hat on your goddamn head? Why you goddamn people worship on Saturday, which is the worship of the planet Saturn, which has rings on it, and then you get married, you wear a ring on your finger, you pierce your ears, you put a ring in your ear. Like Jordan Maxwell, his symbolism, that shit was too fucking deep, yo. That motherfucker break down everything. Like you say, when you give birth, you get a certificate, and just like any boat, when you come up in the harbor, it's a birth. It's the same fucking shit as being in the water, yo. The water laws, maritime admiralty laws. Yeah, Bill Cooper, William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. You know what I'm saying? They killed his ass after he started motherfucking spitting that shit about 9/11. You know what I'm saying? They ran up and say that he tried to attack the cops, but the cops shot his ass twice. You know what I'm saying? Killed him on his own goddamn property. You know what I'm saying? Listen to motherfucking a lot of Noam Chomsky. I listen to a lot of people, man. You know what I'm saying? But this the thing too, bro. When I get into that education shit, you just can't fucking listen to shit, bro. You see this? You gotta read that shit too, man. See that painting of me right there? That's one of my bookshelves. Yeah, my bookshelf full of shit, son. Reading right there, the fucking destruction of black civilization. You know what I'm saying? My homies, we reading Robert Greene, Mastery. If you don't know who Robert Greene is, he also wrote 48 Laws of Power. You need to pick that up. Motherfucking the ISIS paper, Keys to the Colors, written by Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. You ain't never read that? You need to pick that up. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they go 48 Laws of Power right there in that painting. Another stack of books for you. Like she said, black man. You know what I'm saying? I don't play around with this education shit, man. This shit the true shit. I don't just get all my education from Europeans either. So I can talk about motherfucking Tim Wise and Jordan Maxwell and Alan Watt and all these motherfuckers all day. Or I can talk about Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Yusuf, Dr. John Hendrick Clark, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Claude Anderson. I talk about all the other people too now, you know. You can't get all your information from one source. You can't get all your knowledge and understanding from videos and shit like that. Sometimes you gotta pick up a hardback or a paperback and flip a couple pages to learn some more in-depth material. It's always good for somebody to tell you some shit, but it's always better for you to read and get an understanding for yourself. I read the 13th Amendment 13 years ago. I read that shit for my damn self. This before the Netflix original, the 13th. This before Michelle Alexander wrote her book, The New Jim Crow. I was already trying to tell motherfuckers that shit. Do you realize what the 13th Amendment says? Do you understand a for-profit private prison system? Do you understand that? Okay, if you can understand a prison that is for-profit, and then if you really understand the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and then you wonder why they keep locking up little black boys and little brown boys. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 = 2. Dr. Sebi, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Sebi, the first documentary I watched from him was goddamn probably about 8 years ago. I watched this shit called Eat to Live. You know what I'm saying? And come to find out, Left Eye got a lot of spiritual and physical healing and nourishment from his teachings and understandings. Magic Johnson was diagnosed with HIV. Motherfuckers, this was like the height of the epidemic. Motherfuckers thought this dude was gonna die. Motherfucker, 20 years later, Magic Johnson still doing good. And you wonder why. But if you dig through a couple photograph crates, there's this old picture you see of Magic Johnson and Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi said he cured AIDS in the 80s. And they came after him and locked his ass up because he ain't had no right to practice medicine in whatever state. You know what I'm saying? And he said a Mexican taught him most of the shit he know. A Mexican dude taught him a lot of that shit. He went down to Brazil and brought a fucking compound and just started healing motherfuckers, man. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Sebi was the man. He passed away last year. Rest in peace, Dr. Sebi. But yeah, eat to live. Dr. Sebi had a couple wives. Motherfuckers still smoke weed. And just ate a vegan diet. Make sure you had this good water, that good alkaline water. Motherfucker just chill, yo. He said there's only one disease. It's mucus. There's only one disease, is mucus. Man, these motherfuckers been monitoring to me for years, bruh. Like I said, I really was a major, like, street soldier activist for years. Like, for years. All this shit we talking about, like, if I could get my hands on a reliable source and that would put the information together in a concise documentary, yo, me and my homie, I'm talking about for years, bro. Me and my homie, we had this little ritual. Throughout the week, he'll buy 100 blank DVDs. I'll buy 100 blank DVDs. And all week, we're burning up, documentaries on FEMA camps, Agenda 21, chemtrails, Monsantos, you know what I'm saying, the goddamn, the banking system, trying to teach motherfuckers about fractional reserve lending and fiat currency, all this shit. So all week we'll burn up all these documentaries, you know what I'm saying. I got 100 DVDs. Like, we had like 4 documentaries we want. Say is vaccine dangers, dangers in kids' meals, chemtrails, and the Obama deception. So I got those 4 documentaries, right? So I'll burn up 20 copies of each. You know what I'm saying? 25 copies of each. Now I got a stack of 100 goddamn burnt documentaries now. And I do this shit throughout the week. My homeboy do the same thing. On the weekends, we get together. So now I got 4 documentaries burnt up. He got a different set of 4 documentaries burnt up. Whatever he burnt, we try not to burn the same ones. So we got 200 DVDs full of knowledge. And we'll just go out and go to fucking populated areas. Go to fucking festivals, carnivals, flea markets, the mall, and just hand them out for free. Like, here, you need to watch this. And my shit was, do not watch this alone. Don't ever watch this for the first time by yourself. You need your mama, your cousin, your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, whoever. Y'all need to sit down, watch this shit, and have a conversation at the end of this shit. You know what I'm saying? And for years, every weekend, we just out there handing out fucking DVDs, spreading the goddamn word, going to rallies, going to protests. You know what I'm saying? My girlfriend like, oh, why you wasting all your money and time always doing that? Nobody don't watch that shit. Nobody don't listen to y'all. And it's like, if I hand out 1,000 DVDs and only one person watched that shit, and that shit really like sparked just one person to go on their own quest for some real knowledge, then my job is done. And I know for a fact this happened several times over. I know for a fact that, like, throughout the years I've done my research and I've tried to teach other people, that I've had other people just go out and just with fire start like reading shit, like really trying to understand how this fucking game works and how to fucking play this shit. You know what I'm saying? And try to get a real understanding of our position in this fucking machine, yo. Like I say, I don't call the shit art and education for nothing. I be in here bullshitting a lot, but sometimes you gotta motherfucking each one teach one, so each one can reach one. Because America ain't nothing but a corporation.
Above that post, you will get the picture very quickly, and I promise you will be entertained at the same time, because it's terrible to have to submerge yourself in boring, you know, headache-making information. This is not headache-making. You're going to go, oh, wow, I can't believe this. Who can I tell?
Yeah.
And Sean, I also want people to know that I'm doing a little commerce here. When we start putting minerals back into our bodies, we get a different sensation. Our spirit awakens. Our resolve starts to reappear. And so I really urge people to start looking into iodine and magnesium, which you can get in the form of, there's a great cream I sell on my website. Start using magnesium cream. I'm going to add the magnesium oil. Look at the iodine. It's on the health tab, avatarproducts.com. Once you start taking iodine, everything changes. Your body just wakes up. It goes, okay, I feel like I felt when I was a little kid. What can I do today?
That's right. Yeah, I was going to mention your website, avatarproducts.com. We have a little banner, a little box ad for it on the right side of SGT report that I put up there as a favor to Sophia. So check out avatarproducts.com, Sophia's commerce site there with natural health and natural remedy solutions. Sophia, thanks again for your time. Certainly do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Sean. I'm always happy to be on your show.
Guys, I want to thank you all for supporting us at sgtreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com. Real news 24/7. Thanks so much for listening and sharing this interview with those you care about. Have a great night.
To run your own online business but don't know where to start. Maybe you don't know what to sell. Or you don't have the warehouse, staff, or time for a traditional e-commerce business. Or perhaps you just don't want to invest money on inventory people might not buy. Introducing Overload.
All you gotta do is try to add some shadows to that. You gotta start shading.
From an Irish woman, all tears are the same. Hasta Levant. When will Jesus bring the pork chops?
Written and read by George Carlin.
Major funding for this book was made possible by deliberately starving a family of 4 in Tennessee. This is dedicated to my amazing daughter Kelly, keeper of the sacred DNA, citizen of the universe, and one of America's few really good food poet lighter. And all love to my troll mate, the sweet Sarah Jane. A few quotes. Of course the people don't want war, but after all, it's the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, or a parliament, or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, and denounce the pacifists for a lack of patriotism and exposing the country to greater danger. Hermann Göring at the Nuremberg trial. Here's a quote from an Irish woman. All tears are the same. Oscar Levant. So little time, so little to do. S.J. Perelman. The main obligation is to amuse yourself. And Sally Wade said, today's another day, time to play. I'm an outsider by choice, but not truly. It's the unpleasantness of the system that keeps me out. I'd rather be in a good system. That's where my discontent comes from, being forced to choose to stay outside. My advice? Just keep moving straight ahead. Every now and then you find yourself in a different place. Here's a holiday message. Since this book comes out in the fall, I'd like to take advantage of this early opportunity to wish all of you an enjoyable Christmas season and a happy New Year filled with good fortune. Of course, I realize this can't happen for everyone. Some of you are going to die next year, and others will be crippled and maimed in accidents, perhaps even completely paralyzed. Still others will be stricken with diseases that can't be cured, or will be horribly scarred in fires. And let's not forget the robberies and the rapes. There'll be lots of them. Therefore, many of you will not get to enjoy the happy and fortunate New Year I'm wishing for you at this moment. So just try to do the best you can. I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium, digital and smoke-free. A diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstructionist, politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. I've been uplinked and downloaded, I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the upside of downsizing, I know the downside of upgrading. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm new wave, but I'm old school, and my inner child is outward bound. I'm a hot-wired, heat-seeking, warm-hearted, cool customer, voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface with my database is in cyberspace, so I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time I'm radioactive. Behind the 8 ball, ahead of the curve, riding the wave, dodging the bullet, pushing the envelope. I'm on point, on task, on message, and off drugs. I got no need for coke and speed. I got no urge to binge and purge. I'm in the moment, on the edge, over the top, but under the radar. A high-concept, low-profile, medium-range ballistic missionary. A streetwise smart bomb. A Top Gun bottom feeder. I wear power ties, I tell power lies, I take power naps, I run victory laps. I'm a totally ongoing Bigfoot slam dunk rainmaker with a proactive outreach. A raging workaholic. A working rageaholic. Out of rehab and in denial. I got a personal trainer, a personal shopper, a personal assistant, and a personal agenda. You can't shut me up, you can't dumb me down, because I'm tireless and I'm wireless. I'm an alpha male on beta blockers. I'm a non-believer, I'm an overachiever, laid back and fashion forward. Up front, down home, low rent, high maintenance. I'm supersized, long-lasting, high-definition, fast-acting, oven-ready, and built to last. A hands-on, foot-loose, knee-jerk head case, prematurely post-traumatic, and I have a love child who sends me hate mail. But I'm feeling, I'm caring, I'm healing, I'm sharing. A supportive, bonding, nurturing primary caregiver. My output is down, but my income is up. I take a short position on the long bond, and my revenue stream has its own cash flow. I read junk mail, I eat junk food, I buy junk bonds, I watch trash sports. I'm gender-specific, capital-intensive, user-friendly, and lactose-intolerant. I like rough sex. I like tough love. I use the F word in my email, and the software on my hard drive is hardcore, no soft porn. I bought a microwave at a mini mall. I bought a minivan at a mega store. I eat fast food in the slow lane. I'm toll-free, bite-sized, ready to wear, and I come in all sizes. A fully equipped, factory-authorized, hospital-tested, clinically proven, scientifically formulated medical miracle. I've been pre-washed, pre-cooked, preheated, pre-screened, pre-approved, pre-packaged, post-dated, freeze-dried, double-wrapped, and vacuum-packed, and and I have an unlimited broadband capacity. I'm a rude dude, but I'm the real deal. Lean and mean, cocked, locked, and ready to rock. Rough, tough, and hard to bluff. I take it slow, I go with the flow, I ride with the tide, I got glide in my...
This is called when would Jesus bring the pork chops?
Driving and moving, sailing and spinning, jiving and grooving, wailing and winning. I don't snooze, so I don't lose. Keep the pedal to the metal and the rubber on the road. I party hardy, and lunchtime is crunch time. I'm hanging in, there ain't no doubt, and I'm hanging tough, over and out.
He opened up one of his shows with
It's a whole new language. Euphemistic language turns up in many areas of American life in a variety of situations. Not all euphemisms are alike, but they have one thing in common. They obscure meaning rather than enhancing it. They shade the truth, but they exist for various reasons. Sometimes they simply replace a word that makes people uncomfortable. For instance, the terms white meat, dark meat, and drumstick came into use because in Victorian times, people didn't like to mention certain body parts. No one at the dinner table really wanted to hear Uncle Herbert say, "Never mind the thighs, Margaret. Let me have one of those nice, juicy breasts." It would have made them uncomfortable. And at the same time, for the same reason, belly became stomach. But even stomach sounded too intimate, so they began saying tummy. It's actually a bit sad. I first became aware of euphemisms when I was 9 years old. I was in the living room with my mother and my Aunt Lil when I mentioned that Lil had a mole on her face. My mother was quick to point out that Lil didn't have a mole, she had a beauty mark. That confused me because looking at Lil, the beauty mark didn't seem to be working. And it confused me further because my Uncle John also had a brown thing on his face and it was clearly not a beauty mark. And so on that day, I discovered that on some people, what appeared to be moles were actually beauty marks. And as it turned out, they were the same people whose laugh lines looked a lot like crow's feet. By the way, that whole beauty mark scam worked so well that some women routinely began using eyebrow pencils to apply fake beauty marks. A fake mole being something no self-respecting woman would ever think of giving herself. Somehow I can't imagine Elizabeth Taylor turning to Joan Crawford and saying, "Lend me your eyebrow pencil, Joni. I'm going to put a fake mole on my face." By the way, it was only a few years after the Aunt Lil incident that I took comfort in the fact that some people apparently thought my ugly pimples were nothing more than minor skin blemishes. Another role euphemisms play is to simply put a better face on things, to dress up existing phrases that sound too negative. Non-profit became not-for-profit because non-profit sounded too much as though someone didn't know what they were doing. Not-for-profit makes it clear that there was never any intention of making a profit in the first place. But some words that are euphemized aren't even vaguely negative. They're just considered too ordinary. For that reason, many things that used to be free are now complimentary. Asking the hotel clerk if the newspapers are free makes you sound like a mooch. But are the newspapers complimentary? Allows you to retain some small bit of dignity. This is the reason some hotels offer their guests complimentary continental breakfasts, while others give their customers free donuts. If you're one who would enjoy a closer look at euphemisms, you'll find a number of sections in the book that will interest you. I broke the euphemisms into segments because they play such a large and varied role in American speech. And I call it the new language because it's certainly new to me. I know I didn't grow up with it. And that's my larger point, that it's gotten worse over time. There were probably a few early signs I noticed, but I knew the problem was getting serious when I began to hear ordinary people refer to ideas as concepts. And now, stiff upper lip, you know. Imagine two different commercial airliners taking long, fatal plunges directly into the ground from high altitudes. One is a British Airways plane filled with staid English diplomats and upper-class landed gentry. The other plane is Alitalia, filled with uneducated Sicilian, Greek, and Turkish peasants. As the two planes dive towards certain destruction, which one do you think will have the louder screaming and the more colorful praying, cursing, and blasphemy? You get one guess. Hint, it isn't the British plane. Are your eyes dry and itchy? It's possible you may have dry, itchy eyes. Don't take a chance. Call now for Eye Blaster, a special self-powered unit that blasts hot, refreshing steam directly into the eyes to relieve symptoms fast. Just plug in the Eye Blaster and wait 45 minutes for full heat and steam pressure to build up. Then blast the scalding hot steam directly into your eyes for 30 to 40 minutes. Submerge your head immediately in ice water for 15 minutes. Then repeat the steam treatment. Repeat these steps 7 times and then take a breather. Do not use more than 15 times in one 24-hour period. Children under 5 should not use Eye Blaster unsupervised. When using on pets, tie pet to a chair before blasting. Safe for old people, doctor approved, but not eye doctors. Call now. Boxing is an activity in which each of 2 men, by delivering a series of repeated sharp blows to the head, attempts to render the other senseless, leaving him lying on the floor unable to act rationally, defend himself, or even stand up. If one of the 2 men is knocked down and beaten into an only partially blank and helpless mental state, the other is made to stand aside and the contest is halted momentarily while the damaged man regains just enough strength to stand up and have the beating continue, to the point where he is again lying on the floor, this time completely immobile and functionless. Afterward, the 2 men embrace in a display of good sportsmanship.
Hi, Billy. I'm Uncle John. I came up to say goodnight. You remember your Uncle John, don't you? You remember the time I took you down to the beach and we set the hot dog stand on fire and 3 people died? Wasn't that fun? Remember running away from the police and how we hid in the sewer and Uncle John got poo-poo all over him and he wiped it on your coat? You remember? Then I took you to the bar and got drunk and vomited on the jukebox. And sparks started flying out of the jukebox and a fire started and all the people were screaming. Remember that? Remember the screaming and the ambulances? Wasn't that fun? And do you remember that other time, the time I took you to the circus? The lion got loose and ate a monkey. Remember? Wasn't that fun? And then they had to kill the lion. And the monkeys got real sad, so they had to kill the monkeys too. Wasn't that great? And then the man fell off the trapeze and smashed into the ground, and they had to kill him. And all the other trapeze people got real sad, and they had to kill them too. Huh? Wasn't that fun? Why are you crying, Billy? Please don't cry. Please, if you stop crying, I'll take you to the rodeo. Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe someone will get trampled or gored. They got horses and cows too, you know? Maybe they'll have to kill a horsey or a cow. And if they kill a cow, maybe we'll get to eat him in a hamburger. Wouldn't that be fun? Please don't cry. Hey, you remember the time you fell out of my car? Huh? Remember you were looking out the window? We went around a corner real fast to keep from hitting that lady, and you went flying out the window and hit the pole head first. And the doctor had to sew your head up with a big needle. I got a boat now, Billy. You want to go out on my boat? I promise I'll be careful. Are you asleep yet? Billy, please stop crying.
This is about redundancies, and it's called Count the Superfluous Redundant Pleonastic Tautologies.
What?
My fellow countrymen, I speak to you as co-equals, knowing you are deserving of the honest truth. But let me warn you in advance, my subject matter concerns a serious crisis caused by an event in my past history, the execution-style killing of a security guard on a delivery truck. At that particular point in time, I found myself in a deep depression, making mental errors, which seemed as though they might threaten my future plans. I'm not over-exaggerating. I needed a new beginning, so I decided to pay a social visit to a personal friend with whom I share the same mutual objectives and who is one of the most unique individuals I have ever personally met. The end result was an unexpected surprise. When I reiterated again to her the fact that I needed a fresh start, she said I was exactly right, and as an added plus, she came up with a final solution that was absolutely perfect. Based on her past experience, she felt we needed to join together in a common bond for a combined total of 24 hours a day in order to find some new initiatives. What a novel innovation! And as an extra bonus, she presented me with the free gift of a tuna fish. Right away, I noticed an immediate positive improvement. And although my recovery is not totally complete, the sum total is I feel much better now, knowing I am not uniquely alone. Hello. We're the ones who control your lives. We make the decisions that affect all of you. Isn't it interesting to know that those who run your lives would have the nerve to tell you about it in this manner? Suffer, you fools. We know everything you do, and we know where you go. What do you think the cameras are for? And the global positioning satellites? And the social security numbers? You belong to us. And it can't be changed. Sign your petitions, walk your picket lines, bring your lawsuits, cast your votes, and write those stupid letters to whomever you please. You won't change a thing. Because we control your lives, and we have plans for you. Go back to sleep. It came from out of the sky. I find it discouraging and a bit depressing when I notice the unequal treatment afforded by the media to UFO believers on the one hand, and on the other, to those who believe in an invisible supreme being who inhabits the sky, especially as the latter belief applies to the whole Jesus Messiah Son of God fable. You may have noticed that in the media, UFO believers are usually referred to as buffs, a term used to diminish and marginalize them by relegating them to the ranks of hobbyists and mere enthusiasts. They're made to seem like kooks and quaint dingbats who have the nerve to believe that in an observable universe of trillions upon trillions of stars, and most likely many hundreds of billions of potentially inhabitable planets, some of those planets may have produced life forms capable of doing things that we can't do. What nerve. On the other hand, those who believe in an eternal, all-powerful being, a being who demands to be loved and adored unconditionally, and who punishes and rewards according to his whims, are thought to be worthy, upright, credible people. This, in spite of the large numbers of believers who are clearly close-minded fanatics. To my way of thinking, there is every bit as much evidence for the existence of UFOs as there is for the existence of God. Probably far more. At least in the case of UFOs, there have been countless taped and filmed, and by the way, unexplained, sightings from all over the world, along with documented radar evidence seen by experienced military and civilian radar operators. This does not even begin to include the widespread testimony of not only highly trained, experienced military and civilian pilots who are selected for their jobs in part for their above-average eyesight and mental stability, but also of equally well-trained, experienced law enforcement officers. Such pilots and law enforcement people are known to be serious, sober individuals who would have a lot to lose were they to be associated with anything resembling kooky, outlandish beliefs. Nonetheless, they have taken the risk of revealing their experiences because they are convinced they have seen something objectively real that they consider important. All of these accounts are ignored by the media. Granted, the world of UFO belief has its share of kooks and nuts and fringe people, but have you ever listened to some of these religious, true believers? Have you ever heard of any extreme, bizarre behavior and outlandish claims associated with religious zealots? Could any of them be considered kooks, nuts, or dingbats? A fair person would have to say yes. But the marginal people in these two groups don't matter in this argument. What matters is the prejudice and superstition built into the media coverage of the two sets of beliefs. One is treated reverently and accepted as received truth. The other is treated laughingly and dismissed out of hand. As evidence of the above premise, I offer one version of a typical television news story heard each year on the final Friday of Lent. Today is Good Friday, observed by Christians worldwide as a day that commemorates the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, whose death redeemed the sins of mankind. Here is the way it should be written. Today is Good Friday, observed worldwide by Jesus buffs, as the day on which the popular bearded cultural figure, sometimes referred to as the Messiah, was allegedly crucified and, according to legend, died for mankind's so-called sin. Today kicks off a holy weekend that culminates on Easter Sunday, when it is widely believed this dead Savior, who also, by the way, claimed to be the son of a sky-dwelling invisible being known as God, mysteriously rose from the dead. According to the legend, by volunteering to be killed and actually going through with it, Jesus saved every person who has ever lived and every person who will ever live from an eternity of suffering in a fiery region popularly known as hell, providing, so the story goes, that the person to be saved firmly believes this rather fanciful tale. That would be an example of unbiased news reporting. Don't wait around for it to happen. The aliens will land first. I have a problem with the 10 Commandments. Here it is. Why are there 10? We don't need 10. I think the list of commandments was deliberately and artificially inflated to get it up to 10. It's clearly a padded list. Here's how it happened. About 5,000 years ago, a bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to figure out how they could control people and keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told, so these guys announced that God personally, had given one of them a list of 10 commandments that he wanted everyone to follow. They claimed the whole thing took place on a mountaintop when no one else was around. But let me ask you something. When these guys were sitting around the tent making all this stuff up, why did they pick 10? Why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds important. 10 sounds official. They knew if they tried 11, people wouldn't take them seriously. People would say, what, are you kidding me? The 11 commandments? Get the fuck out of here. But 10 sounds important. 10 is the basis for the decimal system. It's a decade. It's a psychologically satisfying number. The top 10, the 10 most wanted, the 10 best dressed. So deciding on 10 commandments was clearly a marketing decision. And it's obviously a bullshit list. It's a political document, artificially inflated to sell better. I'm going to show you how you can reduce the number of commandments and come up with a list that's a little more logical and realistic. We'll start with the first 3, and I'll use the Roman Catholic version because those are the ones I was fed as a little boy. I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath. Okay, right off the bat, the first 3 commandments, pure bullshit. Sabbath day, Lord's name, strange gods, spooky language. Spooky language designed to scare and control primitive people. In no way does superstitious mumbo-jumbo like this apply to the lives of intelligent, civilized humans in the 21st century. So you throw out the first 3 commandments, and you're down to 7. Honor thy father and mother. This commandment is about obedience and respect for authority. In other words, it's simply a device for controlling people. The truth is, obedience and respect should not be granted automatically. They should be earned. They should be based on the parents' or the authority figure's performance. Some parents deserve respect. Most of them don't. Period. We're down to 6. Now, in the interest of logic, something religion has a really hard time with, I'm going to skip around the list a little bit. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Stealing and lying. Actually, when you think about it, these 2 commandments cover the same sort of behavior. Dishonesty, stealing, and lying. So we don't need 2 of them. Instead, we combine these 2 and call it thou shalt not be dishonest, and suddenly we're down to 5. And as long as we're combining commandments, I have 2 others that belong together. Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Once again, these 2 prohibit the same sort of behavior, in this case, marital infidelity. The difference between them is that coveting takes place in the mind, and I don't think you should outlaw fantasizing about someone else's wife. Otherwise, what's a guy going to think about when he's flogging his dong? But marital fidelity is a good idea. So I suggest we keep the idea and call this commandment, thou shalt not be unfaithful. And suddenly, we're down to 4. And when you think about it further, honesty and fidelity are actually part of the same overall value. So in truth, we could combine the 2 honesty commandments with the 2 fidelity commandments and, using positive language instead of negative, call the whole thing, thou shalt always be honest and faithful. And now we're down to 3. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. This one is just plain stupid. Coveting your neighbor's goods is what keeps the economy going. Your neighbor gets a vibrator that plays O Come All Ye Faithful. You want to get one too. Coveting creates jobs. Leave it alone. You throw out coveting, and you're down to 2 now. The big combined honesty-fidelity commandment And the one we haven't mentioned yet, thou shalt not kill. Murder, the fifth commandment. But if you give it a little thought, you realize that religion has never really had a problem with murder. Not really. More people have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason. To cite a few examples, think about Irish history, the Middle East, the Crusades, the Inquisition, our own abortion doctor killings, and yes, that's right, the World Trade Center. And you'll see how seriously religious people take thou shalt not kill. Apparently, to religious folks, especially the truly devout, murder is negotiable. It just depends on who's doing the killing and who's getting killed. And so, with all this in mind, folks, I offer you my revised list of the 2 commandments. First, thou shalt always be honest and faithful, especially to the provider of thy nookie. And second, thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone, unless, of course, they pray to a different invisible avenger than the one you pray to. 2 is all you need, folks. Moses could have carried him down the hill in his fucking pocket. And if we had a list like that, I wouldn't mind that brilliant judge in Alabama displaying it prominently in his courthouse lobby. As long as he included one additional commandment. Thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. Time for Action 6 News with Leslie Crotchmonger and Dick Hopsteckler. Here's Leslie with today's top stories.
Good evening. First, the headlines. A giant man shits on Philadelphia. An old man shows his soiled anus to a waitress at an Olive Garden. A small dog eats a man's balls and dies. A crippled couple is arrested for fucking on a roller coaster. Now the stories behind the headlines. In Philadelphia today, a giant man dropped his huge pants and squatted over Independence Hall. He then unleashed a...
Dick reaches over and grabs Leslie's script. Fuck you, you cunt. You did the headlines.
Lick my asshole, you dim-witted prick. My name comes first on...
And when you think about it, it's like Richard Pryor and George Carlin. Those are the shit. But now, for me, it's like it's Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr. They're like my new Richard Pryor and George Carlin. Yo, George Carlin didn't give a fuck, yo. That motherfucker told the truth about everything. That one skit, warlike people. We are warlike people. We don't get no realer than that. And then that other shit when he said, give us a color and we'll bomb it. Yo, I agree with too much of what this motherfucker say, yo. How you talk about the golf courses? Oh my God. George Carlin on golf. I was like, yo, this dude is fucking a genius. It's a fucking genius. Yeah, I love Carlin. Like, one of the few, once again, I don't have a lot of stand-up DVDs, but I got two Chappelle stand-up DVDs. And I got the first season of the Chappelle Show on DVD. And I got 2 George Carlin stand-up DVDs. But for one, motherfuckers don't hardly buy DVDs anymore. And for 2, like those are the only comedians that I felt like I need to buy their shit and keep it and have it. That shit is, yo, Carlin is fucking crazy.
Announcement.
That's because you blew the news director.
At least I didn't blow a homeless guy who has the sif.
Oh, yeah? Well, he wouldn't have had the sif if you didn't fuck him out back in the dumpster.
Eat my box.
Not without a gas mask, dearie.
Keep fucking with me, little dick, and I'll tell your wife about the Cub Scouts you went down on.
Leslie, the way we're acting is crazy. Let's put all this petty personal stuff behind us and act like professionals. What do you say?
Good idea. I agree.
So what's coming up at 6 o'clock?
How the fuck should I know? What do you think I am, a fucking psychic?
No way. If you were a psychic, you would have known you were going to wind up with labia that hang down like satchel handles.
Thanks, Dick. That's real clever. By the way, doesn't that ever get to you, being called Dick?
Being called Dick is a lot better than being called Dick Licker.
Eat shit, raisin balls. I hope you swallow a turd. Well, folks, that's it for Action 6 News. Don't miss News at 11 tonight as Rod Holder interviews a nun who's been receiving obscene phone calls from a man who says he wants to chew her bush during a funeral mass. Action 6 News has been brought to you by First Bank, meeting community needs since 1849. First Bank, experience out the ass.
I don't understand these people who call themselves spiritual advisors. Franklin Graham, the unfortunate son of Billy Graham, is George Bush's spiritual advisor. Bill Clinton had Jesse Jackson. And here's the part I don't understand. How can someone else advise you on your spirit? Isn't spirit an intensely personal, internal thing? Doesn't it, by its very nature, elude definition, much less analysis? What kind of advice could some drone who has devoted his life to the self-deception of religion possibly give you about your spirit? Sounds like a hustle to me. I have no respect for any man who allows people to call him Junior. I immediately think he's a chump and a loser. To me, Junior means lower than, lesser than, beneath. Putting Junior on a kid's name is just a way for a father to control and demean his son and prevent him from having an identity of his own. I don't like that whole cult of the father thing in the first place. But apparently some guy's self-esteem is just low enough that they accept it. I have no respect for them. Pro sports is full of these hopelessly daddy-addicted athletes who wouldn't think of taking a shit without their father's approval. I especially have no respect for the ones whose fathers coached them in high school or college, or whose fathers played the same position they did. When I hear the sons of coaches and former athletes talking on television, they sound to me like parent pleasers and ass kissers. Why don't they grow up? Guys and Dolls Part 1, Ladies First. I notice a lot of this comedy they have on television is about relationships. Did you ever see this stuff? Relationship comedy? Well, I don't know much about relationships, but over the years, I've noticed a few things about the two sexes, and I'd like to discuss them. Men and women. The big, hairy, noisy male creatures, and the smaller, smoother, but nonetheless also quite noisy female creatures. Here's all you need to know about men and women. Women are crazy, men are stupid. And the main reason women are crazy is that men are stupid. It's not the only reason, but it's a big one. And by the way, if you don't think men are stupid, check the newspaper. 99% of all the truly horrifying shit going on in this world was initiated, established, perpetrated, and enabled or continued by men. And that includes the wave and the high five, two of history's truly low points. But as I say, besides knowing that men are stupid, it's also important to remember that women are crazy. And if you don't think women are crazy, ask a man. That's the one thing men aren't stupid about. They know for sure, way down deep in their hearts, that women are straight out fucking nuts. But it doesn't just happen. It isn't an accident. Women have good reason to be nuts. The main one being that in the course of life, compared with men, they have far more to put up with. They bear a greater burden. Think of it this way. In a big cosmic cafeteria, as human beings move down the chow line of life and reach that section where the shit is being spooned out, women are given several extra portions. And please understand, my motives here are not selfish or personal. I'm not saying all this stuff to get in good with women, although an occasional blowjob would be nice. But it's not a requirement. It's optional. BJO. Blowjob optional. No, I just think it should be evident to any person who's being honest and thinking clearly that women carry a lot more of life's baggage than men. To begin with, they're smaller and weaker, so they get slapped, punched, raped, abused, and in general get the shit beat out of them on a rather regular basis. By men, of course, who are stronger. If women were stronger, this wouldn't be happening. Men would not raise a hand if they thought the balance was more equal. They'd back down quickly. Then again, if women were stronger, they'd probably be beating the shit out of men just for the fun of it. It's only fair. Another major problem for women, they have to look good all the time. Or at least they think they do. So they'll be attracted to their male protectors. Gotta look good tonight. Joey's gonna beat the shit out of me. Maybe I can get a nice kick in the fucking mouth. Gotta look my best. And looking one's female best requires a lot of things. Start with cosmetics. Just think. of all the products and procedures a woman is forced to deal with in the world of cosmetics. Cleansers, toners, foundation, blush, face powder, lipstick, lip gloss, lip liner, eyeliner, eyeshadow, eyebrow pencil, mascara, nail polish remover, manicures, pedicures, fake fingernails, fake eyelashes, face cream, neck cream, eye cream, thigh cream, foot cream, day cream, night cream, cold cream, wrinkle remover, makeup remover, hand lotions, body lotions, bath oils, bath beads, shower gels, bubble baths, scented baths, perfumes, colognes, toilet water, astringents, moisturizers, emulsions, exfoliants, peels, scrubs, depilatories, body wraps, facial masks, shampoos, conditioners, bleaches, dyes, rinses, tints, perms, straighteners, wigs, falls, rats, extensions, combs, barrettes, bobby pins, hair nets, hair curlers, scrunchies, ribbons, bows, tiebacks, headbands, streaking, frosting, teasing, spraying, moussing, blow drying, cutting, layering, curling, eyelash curling, eyebrow plucking, armpit shaving, leg shaving, crotch waxing, leg waxing, eyebrow waxing, and a purse. A big fucking purse. So she can carry all this shit around with her. Especially the makeup, which must be close at hand at all times. Gotta have my makeup in case I run into Joey and he wants to beat the shit out of me. Gotta look my best. Maybe he'll punch me repeatedly in the kidneys and the stomach so it doesn't mark up my face. He's so thoughtful. And my friend, I hope you're aware that when we talk about women looking good, we're also talking about clothing. Clothing is what generates all that shopping shit that occupies so much of a woman's time. Because the truth is, women have to buy, own, and wear an unbelievably bewildering number of garments. Slips, half-slips, camisoles, thongs, panties, pantyhose, stockings, half-hose, knee-highs, anklets, socks, leg warmers, garter belts, girdles, corsets, training bras, padded bras, sports bras, nursing bras, push-up bras, strapless bras, wonder bras, bustiers, teddies, petticoats, peignoirs, negligees, nightgowns, shorties, muumuus, body stockings, blouses, sweaters, jerseys, pullovers, halter tops, miniskirts, maxi skirts, slacks, suits, sunsuits, business suits, pantsuits, culottes, capris, shorts, short shorts, hot pants, formal gowns, bridal gowns, evening gowns, street dresses, sundresses, cocktail dresses, house coats, winter coats, fall coats, spring coats, hats and scarves, brooches, pins, necklaces, pendants, medallions, lockets, bracelets, ankle bracelets, earrings, wedding rings, engagement rings, friendship rings, thumb rings, toe rings, and optional, of course, nipple, nose, and labia rings. And let's not even begin to talk about shoes. Oh, God, so sorry, girls. I take it back. But at least, let's keep it brief. Tennis shoes, sandals, open toes, slingbacks, mules, wedgies, flats, half heels, and high heels. High heels that damage a woman's feet, ankles, and knees, but make her ass look great. So how can you blame a guy for the occasional rape? Hey, the bitch was asking for it. She was wearing high heels. Now, generally, all this obsession with appearance has one purpose. It's supposed to lead to romance. And it is devoutly wished by some, a wedding. A wedding is another one of those good deals women get. The man takes a wife, the woman is given away, her family pays for the whole thing, and everyone stands around hoping she gets pregnant immediately. Pregnant? Hey, another terrific treat for the gals. A chance to gain 40 pounds, puke in the morning, walk like a duck, get sore tits, and develop a nice case of hemorrhoids. What a deal! And such attractive clothing. Plus, she can't get up off the couch without help. Well, it's her own fault. This wouldn't have happened if she'd taken her birth control pill or used her diaphragm. Notice, her pill, her diaphragm. But think of how fulfilling it can be. After all, now she has a baby. A baby she gets to practically raise alone. And if she decides to be a stay-at-home mom, she gets to cook, clean, sew, scrub, scour, wax, wash, dry, iron, do the shopping, drive the van, and entertain the guests. She's a housewife, an unpaid in-family domestic servant. Admittedly, that description is a bit more in line with the old model. The new model is so much better. She gets a fucking job so she can be bringing something in. But somehow she still winds up being an unpaid in-family domestic servant after she gets home from the job. You know, the job, where she gets paid less than men for the same work, does not rise beyond a certain level in the company, and gets harassed all day long by some oversexed moron with a lump in his pants. Probably better just to stay home, where she doesn't have to be bothered with that pesky paycheck crap. And there's none of that nonsense about Social Security, pension plans, and unemployment money in case of divorce. Just alimony and child support, if the ex-husband can be located. The ex who probably thought she was looking a little used up.
and dumped her for someone whose milk glands hadn't sagged yet. Can't forget those milk glands, can we, girls? Tits, 2 tits, sticking straight out of your chest. In some cases, sticking straight out. Well, for a few years anyway. Yes, girls, just by virtue of being female, you get to walk around all your life with 2 vulnerable milk glands hanging out in front of you like lanterns. And if somehow you should get the idea that men don't approve of the size and shape of those milk glands, you'll find plenty of social pressure to have them artificially enhanced. Such enhancement usually will be performed and supervised by men. Here's another physical treat for females. Periods. Cramping, bloating, and bleeding 5 days a month. 15% of the time. And you can add the time spent with premenstrual syndrome, PMS. Men gave it that name.
Oh, damn. I ain't know the camera was so low. My bad, guys.
My several days of shrieking and crying and depression just before my several days of bleeding, cramping, and bloating. Men don't quite see it from that angle. Men experience PMS as a problem for them.
What's the matter, Joey? You don't look so good.
My wife's got the PMS. Here are some more special female advantages, in case you haven't had enough. Pap smears, mammograms, hysterectomies, mastectomies, miscarriages, abortions, labor pains, childbirth pain, episiotomies, stretch marks, and breastfeeding, and postpartum depression. Can't imagine why she wouldn't feel good. And just to top it all off, menopause. Menopause. More strange behavior and exciting physical sensations. And in exchange for all of this, in exchange for all this abuse from nature, what is the woman's payoff? Why, she's allowed to get into the life post first. At least theoretically. How often do you think that really happens? Oh, and let's not forget, many men are quite willing to hold the door open for her. In fact, some men are quite impressed with their willingness to do this. They brag about it.
Yeah, I beat the shit out of her a lot, but you know something? When she runs from one room to the other, I always hold the door open.
I'll tell you what a bad deal women got. They're in the majority on this planet, and they've still wound up with the shitty end of the stick. That's how big a hosing they got. Oh, and one other inequity I neglected to mention. Very unequal. But this one works in women's favor. They live longer than men. And remember, this happens in spite of all the shit they have to put up with. So who do you think is tougher? Men or women? Why don't you guess? And don't forget, women have the huge added burden of having to put up with men. Free breast examinations. As a public service, the Hells Angels will be conducting free breast examinations this weekend at their clubhouse behind the Chrome Sprocket Bar. If you prefer privacy, the Bikers Mobile Breast Patrol will be happy to perform their services in the privacy of your bedroom. Pelvic examinations and pap tests are also available, but usually take a little longer. Beside a dusty road in the open air, a physically repulsive man dressed in filthy doctor clothes stands at a rusted-out examination table, wearing a coal miner's hat and heavy work gloves. A woman lies in front of him on the examination table, her legs extending out from under a torn and bloody sheet, the ankles resting in stirrups. Nearby, an unattractive nurse sits at a desk, sticking her nose and wiping around the whole. Women squat nearby on tree stumps, reading magazines, waiting their turn. Just above this tableau is a large sign reading, "Discount Roadside Gynecology." I really enjoyed my recent airplane trip to Africa. Everything went just perfectly. I had no trouble at all making reservations a month in advance, and I had my tickets in hand, including seat selection a week before the flight. I even ordered a special vegetarian meal. I left home early the day of the flight and arrived at the airport with several minutes to spare. My friend dropped me off at the curb and left immediately. My one bag, which was a light one, was easy to carry and did not have to be checked. I was able to take it on board and save time at each end. I walked into the terminal. There was no line at the security area. My carry-on bag passed inspection, and I didn't ring any bells walking through the metal detector. Looking for my gate number on the departures board and spotting it without breaking stride, I headed for Gate 1, the nearest gate. With just a few minutes left until takeoff, I walked a few steps to the gate and boarded the plane. The seat I had reserved was right next to the window, and the seat next to me was unoccupied, plenty of room to spread out. I was in first class with only 3 other passengers. The 2 female flight attendants were pleasant and very attractive. They said my special meal was on board. I had plenty of leg room and all my seat controls worked perfectly. Seat back tilt, contour button, leg rest, light switch, even stereo controls. Everything continued flawlessly. The plane's door was closed exactly on time, and we taxied immediately to the end of the runway. Pausing barely an instant, we began our takeoff roll, which sounded and felt extremely smooth. There was very little vibration, just a steady increase in power and speed as we became airborne and gently glided up. I felt no bumps or strain, and we quickly leveled off to a quiet cruise speed at our assigned altitude. Then the plane went into a steep dive and crashed into the ground, killing all but 2 of us. Fortunately, my co-survivor was a fantastic-looking woman, a registered nurse who had taken survival courses. After a quick check, we realized neither of us was hurt, and then I remembered I still had 2 joints tucked into my sock. We got high and made love several times. The sex was great for both of us, and we promised to see each other often if we somehow managed to get out of there. The only condition on her part was that there be no commitment of any kind between us. She wanted to be independent. I agreed. After a short time, we found some sandwiches and beer. We ate and drank and laughed for about an hour, and then we noticed that a signal flare gun had landed nearby. We fired off 1 flare, and almost immediately saw a small private plane flying overhead. They spotted us and began to circle. They made a low pass at us, waggling their wings, and then headed off, presumably to get help. Thank God, everything was still going smoothly. That's when the gorillas showed up. I don't think it's right that ugly women should be allowed to get plastic surgery and get fixed up to look real nice. I think if you're born ugly, you ought to stay that way. That should be it. It's not right to let people get fixed up. It's creepy to think that you could possibly find yourself fucking some woman you picked up because you thought she was great looking, but underneath she's really ugly. She got her nose fixed, her lips, her eyes. She got nipped and tucked and liposuctioned, and the surgeon did a good job. He didn't overdo it, and now she looks really great. But underneath it all, she's horrible looking, and you're actually fucking a pig. Someone you wouldn't even ask for change of $1 if you could see her real face. It's not right. Ugliness should be a permanent condition. The continuing story of Mary and Joseph. It's a boy. Joe, we're going to have a baby. What? That's impossible. All I ever do is put it between your thighs. Well, I don't know. Something must have gone wrong. Who says you're pregnant? An angel appeared to me in the backyard and said so. An angel? An angel of God. His name was Gabriel. He had a trumpet, and he appeared to me in the backyard. He what? He appeared to me. Was he naked? No, I think he had on a raincoat. I don't really know. He was glowing so brightly. Mary, you're under a lot of stress. Why don't you take a few days off from the shop? The accounts can wait. I'm telling you, Joe, this angel Gabriel said that God wanted me to have his baby. Did you ask for some sort of sign? Of course I did. He said tomorrow morning I'd start getting sick. Well, why would God want a kid? Well, Gabriel said that according to Luke, it's kind of an ego thing. Plus, he promised the Jews a long time ago. It's just that he never got around to it. But now that he feels ready for children, he doesn't want to just make them out of clay or dust. He wants to get humans involved. Well, is he going to help toward raising the kid? God knows we can't do it alone. I could use a bigger shop. And maybe you could throw a couple of those nice crucifix contracts my way. The Romans are nailing up everything that walks. Honey, Gabriel said not to worry. The kid would be a real winner. A public speaker and good with miracles. Well, that's a relief. Anyway, I guess now that you're officially pregnant, I can start putting it inside of you, huh? I'm sorry, honey. God wants it to be strictly a virgin birth. I don't get it. That's right, Joe. Don't I get to do anything? He wants you to come up with a name for the kid. Jesus Christ. Oh, you're so heavy. Guys and Dolls Part 2. Man, oh man. To my way of thinking, men have only one real problem. Other men. That's where all their trouble starts. A long time ago, men gave away their power to other men. Princes, kings, wizards, generals, and high priests. They gave it away because they believed what these other men told them. They bought the okey-doke, the bullshit. Men always buy the okey-doke when it comes from other men. Some stranger probably stood up at a campfire and said, "All right, boys, from now on, I'm the king. The sun is my father, the moon is my mother, and they're the ones who tell me when to throw the virgins into the volcano. I'll be expecting all of you to bow deeply when you see me and give me half your crops. Plus, I'm allowed to fuck your wife. And don't forget, if I want to, I can concentrate real hard and make your head explode." And the other men around the campfire nodded their heads and said to one another, "This guy makes a lot of sense." A man will always buy the bullshit, because a man is not too bright. But I'm not suggesting a man doesn't have a great deal to put up with. He does. First of all, a man has to make believe he knows what he's doing at all times. And while he's doing whatever it is he's doing, he has to make believe he doesn't need any help. He has to make believe he can fix anything. And if he can't fix it now, he can fix it later. And if he can't fix it later, he has a friend who can fix it. And if not, it was no good to start with, it's not worth fixing, and besides, he knows where he can get something better, much cheaper, but they're all out of them right now, and besides, they're closed. This is the male disease. It's called being full of shit. The male disease includes the need to be in charge at all times. In charge, in control, in command. A real man sees himself as king of the hill, leader of the pack, captain of the ship. But all the while, in order to fit in and belong, he has to act like all the other men and do what they do, so he'll be accepted and get a good job and a promotion and a raise and a Porsche and a wife who will immediately trade in the Porsche on a nice, sensible Dodge van with folding seats so they can be like all the other boring families. The poor fuck. The poor, stupid fuck. His manliness also requires that he refuse to go to a doctor or a hospital unless it can be demonstrated to him that he has in fact been clinically dead for 6 months. "No sense going to the hospital, honey. I don't seem to be in a coma." Therefore, he must learn to ignore pain. "It doesn't really hurt. Bleeding from 6 holes in the head doesn't really hurt. Just give me the remote and get me a beer and get the fuck out of here." Most men learn this stupid shit from their fathers. Fathers teach their sons not to cry. "Don't let me hear you crying or I'll come up there and give you something to cry about." Great stuff, huh? All the problems in the world, repeat, all the problems in the world can be traced to what fathers do to their sons. So little boys learn to hide their feelings, and society likes that, because that way when they get to be 18, they'll be able to go overseas and kill strangers without feeling anything. And of course, that bargain includes a certain reluctant willingness to have their balls shot off. "Honey, I have to go overseas and have my balls shot off, or else the rest of the guys will think I'm too afraid to go overseas and have my balls shot off." The poor fucks. The poor, stupid fucks. And so, as a result of all this repression of feelings, the extent of the average man's emotional expression is the high five. Or sometimes when really deep feelings emerge, both hands, the high 10. This is raw emotion. And that's about all they're capable of. And they have Dad to thank. Thanks, Dad. But wait, don't think dads can't be fun at times too. After all, dads introduce their sons to the wonderful world of men, the male subcultures, the really tough guy, masculine He-Man stuff. No wimps, no pussies, no softies. There are 5 deadly male subcultures, and they all overlap. The car and machinery culture, the police and military culture, the outdoors and gun culture, the sports and competition culture, and the drug and alcohol culture. And as a bonus...
But I'm with the art and education culture. See? Not with all that other shit.
I'm gonna throw in one more. The let's go get some pussy and beat the shit out of queers culture. As I say, they all overlap. Many men belong to all 6. This male universe is, of course, detectable by analyzing its combustible chemical formula. Gasoline, gunpowder, alcohol, and adrenaline. A chemistry rendered even more lethal by that ever-present, ever-delightful accelerant, testosterone. Talk about substance abuse? If it's chemical dependency you're interested in, you might want to look into testosterone. Testosterone, the most lethal substance on Earth. And it does not come from a laboratory. It comes from the scrotum. A scrotum located, interestingly enough, not far from the asshole. How fitting. And as it happens, all these male subcultures share a particular set of features. Homophobia, coupled with an oddly ironic, complete childlike trust in male authority. Men are attracted to powerful men. They also share a strong fear and dislike of women, and this in spite of a pathological obsession with pussy. Testosterone. So why are men like this? I think the overriding problem for men is that in life's main event, reproduction, they're left out. Women do all the work. What do men contribute? Generally, they're just looking for a quick parking space for some sperm. A couple of hits of hot jism and the volume on the TV goes right back up. It's my belief that most of these flawed male chromosomes should not be allowed to go forward for even one more unfortunate generation. But such is biology. And so, excluded as they are from reproduction, men must find other ways to feel useful and worthwhile. As a result, they measure themselves by the size of their guns, the size of their cars, the size of their dicks, and the size of their wallets. All contests that no man can win consistently. Now let me tell you why all this happened. Because women are the source of all human life. The first human being came from the belly of a female, and all human fetuses begin as female. The brain itself is basically female until hormones act on it to make it structurally male. So in reality, all men are modified. Itself is basically women are the source. Cars, the size of their dicks, and the size of their wallets. All contests that no man can win consistently. Now let me tell you why all this happened. Because women are the source of all human life. The first human being came from the belly of a female, and all human fetuses begin as female. The brain itself is basically female until hormones.
All human fetuses begin as female. When I first realized that shit, because this is something like, I've always been an inquisitive person, and way more inquisitive than what my fucking teachers could ever teach me, because of either lack of knowledge or, fear of, breaking some kind of educational oath or indoctrination codes or whatever that, they can't say certain shit at school, but like ever since a fucking child, I've always wondered, like, why do men have nipples? What is the fucking purpose? What's the fucking point? Like you said, women do all the fucking work. Women give birth, and they produce milk for the child from their mammary glands. So what the fuck do men have nipples for? Why do we have nipples? And it's like you said, because all fetuses start as female. All fetuses start as female. Everybody's a girl to start with until that fucking Y chromosome kicks in. And then you have a chance of becoming a fucking man. But everything starts as a woman, And that's why men have fucking nipples that we don't even use.
Act on it to make it structurally male. So in reality, all men are modified females. Where do you think those nipples came from, guy?
See?
You're an afterthought. Maybe that's what's bothering you.
Is that what's on your mind, Bunky?
That would explain the hostility.
Where do you think your nipples come from?
Women got the good job, men got the shitty one. Females create life, males end it. War, crime, violence are primarily male franchises. Man shit. It's nature's supreme joke.
This is
deep in the womb.
I'm about to get off here anyway. This George Carlin book is 7 hours and 29 minutes of that shit, I'm George going off like that for 7 hours.
The dude hating on a woman, that's just white. Like,
Yeah, because you have a penis, but you know, men, they upset, they jealous of women anyways because their coochies fell out. Yeah. See, everybody starts out as female. All humans start out as female, and then a chromosome kicks in, and your coochie fall out. That's why men have nipples. Okay. And so you guys are like, this is a fact.
okay. YouTube video.
And I've seen it in the encyclopedia.
All right.
Britannica.
And we all have little penises in us. Yours just, your little penis just.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever look at
a clitoris,
look at a penis. That is nothing but a vagina that fell out.
So the bigger your penis, the bigger your vagina was.
Yeah. The testicles is the ovaries. The sac is the uterus. The shaft is the vaginal canal, and the tip is the clitoris. Your coochie fell out, sir. That's why some men act like bitches.
That's why some men act like bitches, because your coochie fell out. Yeah, I love how she did that shit. Nigga, yes, y'all jealous anyway. Y'all just mad because your coochie fell out. The coochie fell out, nigga. The testicles is the ovaries. And the tip is the clitoris. Your coochie fell out. That's why some men act like bitches. Yeah, she killed me with that. Oh my God. Matter of fact, yo, rival. Alright, this some of my old music right here, yo. Now, I'll tell you before you hear these tracks, yo. These shits are like 10 years old. Like the last time I was really in the studio was like 07, 08, some shit like that. So yeah, this music is like 10 years ago when I was writing way before this and recording way before this. So this is like the last couple of songs. This is after, I don't know, it's not after I started doing research and shit like that. It was just a point where I just couldn't keep writing the same shit anymore because I felt like I knew a lot of different shit and nobody don't want to talk about different shit. So I don't know, I just started writing different, like just putting different material in my music. And I got a few songs, like the last set of songs I recorded is a result of this. should have my other speaker up here, yeah.
And they do, they wanna take it while sovereignty, no posse commentator, they ain't got no apologies. Now everywhere I go, it's like a dark cloud follow me. Got me starting to think that it's hard technology. Now they playing God, trying to change the weather. While we stuck in the matrix, still chained together. Getting beat around, kicked down to change the weather. But I'ma see if I can make a change for the better. I'm the best thing ever to happen to the movement, cause I'ma use my music to bring the youth in. Roundhouse karate, chop the system like Bruce in. Every verse I kick, I be spitting the truth. If you trapped in the box, it's because your own doing. I'm out of this word, you better call on Houston. And all you world leaders, who the hell you think you fooling? Cause you don't give a damn about the state of the union. They all say I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the ones to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same. They all say I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the one to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same. When I start to black out, they say trap is dead wrong. But the system won't change, they still writing dead songs. Break the Constitution till the thing dead gone. I can't believe that slavery lasted this long. And it really hits home when you start to lose jobs. Still looking for the truth, listening to Lou Dobbs. Grab a megaphone, start yelling out a few snobs. I'm a real patriot, guess what? You not, and it's getting too hot. Man, I saw two cops, gave the Obama deception and said you watch. Said I sound like Tupac, looking at his new watch. Told me I was loitering, I had to move 2 blocks. Had me wrapped up in chains, shackled down with 2 locks. So I had to take the machine until the screws pop. Riding around town, putting flyers in your news box. Trapped in the darkness, now we got a new spot. Y'all see I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the ones to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same. They all say I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the one to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same. Your first education starts in the household. Gotta teach the kids, don't sit and keep your mouth closed. Read to them, sing to them, it helps their mind grow, so they have a better chance when they let the dice roll. Everything internet, hardbacks are old news, but you gotta keep the new mixed with the old school. Got a lot of new laws, hope you know the old rules, cause a young dummy only grows into an old fool. Guidelines, codex, alimentarius, feeding us poison but won't pay the barriers. 1933 the country went bankrupt. 1935 the bank said they own us. Now we all born with the mark of the beast. Social security number, you better believe that you are private property of a company. So I'ma reclaim myself in the name of peace. They all say I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the ones to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same. They all say I'm crazy, going insane. But I'ma speak the truth until I see some change. It's obvious the youth ain't the one to blame, because parents and teachers are one and the same.
I'm trying to find a good stopping point. I'm hungry, I need to get some lunch, I gotta go run some errands.
Again, 9/11 false flags, now they making trillions. Trained all the terrorists and now they want to kill them. Martial law is coming, so think about the children. Say we need a bigger army, so they gotta train the youth. Mandatory military service, what they gonna do? 18 to 25, 3 months of boot camp. Send them money overseas and still I can't get food stamps. 110 stories collapse, 10 seconds flat. Man, how the hell they do that? You must be can't do that. When I talk about this stuff, a lot of people do laugh. Please stay, put you in a FEMA camp too bad. The average person stressing no recession got us too mad. Big banks getting bailed out, the feds losing cash. Soldiers still dying every day out in Iraq. They trying to sell the country out. The people gotta take it back. Better read the Constitution, cause we need a new solution. 9/11 truth got me ready for the revolution. Fighting for my freedom, cause man, I think we about to lose it. If you really patriotic, now the time to show improvement. Better read the Constitution, cause we need a new solution. 9/11 truth got me ready for the revolution. Fighting for my freedom, cause man, I think we about to lose it. If if you really patriotic. Now the time to show your prudence. Now the cat and trade. Now they got the carbon tax. Plus they killed the Constitution when they made the Patriot Act. Now they got my phone tap, telling you and all that. Tried to vote against it, but Barack Obama brought it back. Now they up on Act 2, spread it fast like hand 2. Better drop that fast school, start to be some damn new Wall Street gang. Tried to play us like a damn fool. Things won't change unless the people make some damn moves. PrisonPlanet.com, info wars and drop bombs. I know the truth is scary, but listen up and stay calm. Unemployment rate got so many wanna steal and rob, but them peoples in the tower really lost their day job. Uncle Sam getting over cause he thinking we dumb. Wanna be a slave or do you wanna fight for freedom? Black president, never thought that we would see one. A president don't change things, this is just a rerun. Time to take the power back, give it to the people. Open up the curtains, see through the evil. Cause they use deceptions trying to deceive you. Lethal injections, stick you with needles. My friend got vaccinated, still caught the measles. Gotta get the message out, travel like the Beatles. Sleep with the fishes, I fly with the eagles. What can we do? Somebody ask me. Teach it to your children, they tell it to their classmates. Cause they are the future, living in the last days. But a young, brilliant mind will change the landscape. Bondage and slavery, let's try to escape. All to the course of the world with just a handshake. And I failed to graduate, so education mandate. Time to heal the problem, we can't fix it with a band-aid. So I tell the truth to my kids. Give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy and sometimes we stress. Always follow your dream, don't live off regrets. So I tell the truth to my kids. Give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy and sometimes we stress. Always follow your dream, don't live off regrets. If you never been poor, can't understand my story. Why I fight for the cause, never for the glory. Now they got my phone tapped, trying to record me. Cause all these lying politicians just bore me. No more patience for the fabrications. I just realize all the time we wasting. All the other slaves, man, I'm really trying to save them. So we can live our lives freer than the Masons. And it's amazing how they got us brainwashed. Drive-outs with little kids playing in the sandbox. Won't travel the desert, they say the sand hot. Complain but won't try to fight to get what they got. Instead they watch TV and let their brain rot. While guns and drugs are a part of their plot. And I just cannot fall for the system. You don't stand for something, then you fall as a victim. So I tell the truth to my kids. Give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy and sometimes we stress. Always follow your dream, don't live off regrets. So I tell the truth to my kids. Give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy and sometimes we stress. Always follow your dream, don't live off regrets. Got too much television, not enough books. Too many pawns, not enough crooks. Not enough queens, not enough kings. To teach our children how to do the right things. But every journey starts off with baby steps. You gotta stay on top, keep your grades in check. And you shouldn't have sex if you ain't ready yet. Gotta learn to manage money, don't get in debt. And if you got student loans, better pay the rest. Because a good credit score is a great success. But your Uncle Sam might get upset when he see me on the podium and you up next. Don't dwell on regrets, cause we fighting for the future. Call me the teacher, call me the tutor. Crucial decisions, this game is brutal. I'ma make a spark and let the fire run through you.
So I tell the truth to my kids. Give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy and sometimes we stress. Always follow the dreams, don't live off regrets. And so I tell the truth to my kids. So we can live our lives freer than the Masons. And it's amazing how they got us brainwashed. Drive-bys with little kids playing in the sandbox. Won't travel the desert, they say the sand hot. Complain, but won't try to fight to get what they got. Instead, they watch TV and let their brains rot, while guns and drugs are a part of their plot. And I just cannot fall for the system. If you don't stand for something, then you fall as a victim. And so I tell the truth to my kids, and give them all the knowledge, then we play like recess. Sometimes we happy, and sometimes we stress. But always follow your dreams. Don't live off regrets. My goal in life is to strive to do a little bit better. I know for a fact I don't do everything accordingly, and I do a lot of things I ain't supposed to. The one thing I try not to do though is lie to the kids. When my little man come back daddy a question, I try to tell him the truth every time. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. If you wanna know the real, you can read the dollar bill. And the truth is so cold that sometimes I get the chills. And this world is so sick that sometimes I feel ill. But the only thing the doctor's gonna do is give you pills, prescribe you this, prescriptions for that. Addiction to barbiturates, man, that's the new crack. And you ain't gotta smoke it all, just take a Marinol. Everything synthesized, that's where we headed, y'all. And they gonna clone all the Bilderberg members. But the phoenix always gonna rise from the embers, like the winter solstice in the late December 2012. Armageddon, just remember, you're here for a purpose, and your life is worthless if you can't elevate your mind past the surface. Wake up all your chakras, become a new person. You are within the spirit, the creator made you perfect. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. I know 9/11 was an inside job and a lot of people died, but you can't blame a lot. Muslims didn't plant the bombs, no place at the Pentagon, but you can't blame Bush either. He was just a pawn, then they hide all the facts. Continue with carry on, so searching for the truth is like chasing leprechauns. If you want the problem solved, use brain over brawn. I respect Alex Jones, cause the info was our own. If Barack Hussein Obama was a real savior, he couldn't fight the New World Order on his own. And no, I'm not a psychic, but this Jew is priceless. Yeah, this boy's gonna change the place you call home. But when you went wrong, gotta do as the Romans. But what about the Mayans, Easter Island, and Stonehenge? Too much pressure and stress can make your bones bend. I hope you do your own research when the song ends. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. Now with the perfect timing, I'm gonna keep on rhyming. No more truth denying, so my kids can shine like diamonds. Some of my old shit. I said, man, I tried to every venue, every avenue I could to just expose people to like some of the information that I was becoming aware of. You know what I'm saying? Put the shit in my music, put the shit in my art. Start a fucking YouTube channel called Art and Education. Sit here and talk about this shit all day. Sit here and talk about this shit all day. And I'm always open to learn new shit too. I ain't new to this, I'm true to this. Been doing this shit before the goddamn social media shit, before the Facebook, before the goddamn, what was before Facebook? MySpace, before that shit, before the Facebook, before the Instagram and YouTube and all that shit. I was already on my Dean trying to do my research back in the day. I'm a lot older than I look for most people. I'm saying I started doing this shit when I was like 15 years old. Just cause I come from a very, very religious family and I ain't fuck with religion. I don't know what it is about me or what, but at an early age, 13 years old, I already knew like, yo, this religion shit is not for me. It was weird as shit, and like before I even kind of like fully understand what a cult was, I already had like feelings like that about the church. Like, this is some cult type shit. I don't want to be a part. Why are you forcing me to be a part of this shit? You making me do this shit, and I don't want to sit here and learn about no motherfucking dead Messiah. Like George Carlin said, some sky daddy telling me I'm born in fucking sin. I'm burning in hell if I don't bend the knee and pray to this motherfucker. Like, oh shit, man, let me just go home and color. I got this brand new He-Man coloring book. You know what I'm saying? I'm down with that shit. I'm not down with this churchy shit. Like, ever since a young boy, like that church shit, man, that shit sparked my ass. Like 13, 14, 15 years old, I'm already in the motherfucking library trying to figure out who the fuck is what the dude name who started the Mormon church, John Smith, and all these, the Mormons and the motherfucking Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm trying to dig into the fucking 325 AD and the Nicene Council. Then you get into the Rosicrucians and the Order of the Rose, the Brotherhood of the Owl, and all this. I was like, god damn. Then oh shit, don't start touching on that old Egyptian shit and oh well, the creation story was taken from older stories. Man, when I asked my grandma that shit, man, I said, how you know this shit real? Well, the Bible says so. I said, well, they stories before the Bible with the same story. They just changed the names. And my grandma said I was full of demons and I need to pray. That was her only explanation. And right then and there, I was like, yep, this shit fake as fuck. I knew that shit at like I say 14, 15. This shit fake as fuck. Oh shit! All my whole family brainwashed into some fake ass Eastern European fucking Christianity beliefs and shit. Like, I can't believe y'all know y'all motherfuckers were slaves, right? Y'all don't see the irony in this. But oh well. Anyway, so that researching religion led me to the occult, which led me to fucking different groups like the Prioress Scion and the Masons and shit like that, and just, you know, just keep reading. Like I say, but when I first started, man, I had to read, like, get to the library. Holy Blood, Holy Grail was one of the first shits I read. One of the first shits I read was David Icke's The Biggest Secret. What else I was reading? Even fictional stories like I remember my mom, my homeboy's mom let me read Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. And then that shit sent me on a real spark for like secret societies and shit like that. And then right around that time, 9/11 happened. Oh my fucking god. And now that's when I got on like Alex Jones and Jordan Maxwell and people like that. And then after a while, I was like, man, I gotta put this shit in my music. But nobody don't want to hear nobody rap about no bullshit like government conspiracies. So I said, fuck it, I'ma just paint. I'd rather be a painter anyway. I'm better at painting than rapping. Obviously. I have proven this. Now I use the CD to scoop my kitty litter. You know? Where you say fight fire with fire, sometimes you gotta fight shit with shit. Alright, almost at 3 hours. Let me get out here and run around and do some shit today. I may have to hit up this supply store because that tube of paint is slim. I got some more in there, but it ain't a lot. It ain't gonna last a long time. I may need to pick one of them up. And it's like this artist space is having a like a little fair or craft fair or something. I don't know how to really explain that shit, but I'm gonna go check that shit out. Yeah, that's why I'm about to go get that second breakfast real quick, bro. Damn, the first thing that pops up is Pete Santelli exposed. Pete Santelli InfoWars. And he's still, well, he fucks with Alex Jones.
We didn't hold the stream. I got to reset it.
Oh no, this is.
Just let me know.
There we go.
There we go. We're
just
on.
Came up.
There you
There's
go.
A little bit of a lag.
You need to know. This is actually, you know why I'm not in a panic anymore, but because we have them so figured out now. You guys need to. So something went wrong. on Facebook. Error. Something went wrong. Error.
Yeah, I'll check out one of his podcasts. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan too. Shit. Been sitting down too damn long. Yeah, a lot of times you'll catch me in here listening to some Joe Rogan. Alright, let me turn all this shit off. Speaker just powered off. Turn off the laptop. Alright, laptop. Shut down, you motherfucker. Exile, yes sir. I don't know, it's weird. Like lately, I do a morning stream, and then in the afternoon, like for the past 3 days, I'll come in here and I'll just paint for a couple hours, like by myself with the camera off. But I might stream this afternoon. And there's not a lot of this left actually. So I was just working on the leather a little bit. So there's only this section of her jacket left that's exposed. And those browns are basically like some of the same browns that are in this this coffee cup. So but what? Yeah, so the next part I'm gonna work on is getting some. No, that's still wet. That white is wet. But just want to get the highlights here and define some of these lines right there and some of the wrinkles in that leather. Getting like the little furry part. Still a little wet. But that layer came out pretty good. No, that's crazy. And this portion of the leather looks pretty good. So for the second layer of paint, I'm gonna let it roll like that. And I appreciate everybody stopping in here, hanging out, chilling out with me, checking out the progress on this portrait. And especially the new viewers, if this was your first time in the stream, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're on the PlayStation like I am, follow my my PlayStation tag. And with that being said, I'll get with you guys next time. Peace.